participation person on here. So there we go. Okay, so we're prepared to get moving here, Council. If you are, that's great. Kayla, thank you for joining us again. And I see we have all of our councillors here. So Kayla, we are broadcasting, is that correct?
You are now live, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, Kayla. Thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for joining us at this council meeting. We're continuing our council meeting here for Monday, November the 9th, 2020. The council did meet in camera session, and we had then a brief recess for about, I guess, 20, maybe 35 minutes or so. And so we're now picking it up here at 5:30. So welcome, everybody. We have a full agenda. We have some people that want to speak as well tonight that are going to be on joining us. So we'll get started right away, and we will go to item number 2 on our open agenda, which is approval of the agenda. And its recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated November the 9th, 2020 as presented. And I ask for a mover and seconder on the call, please. Where are we at? We got Ms. Leishman and Mr. Broderick. All right, any questions? I'll prepare to call the motion. All those in favor? All right, thank you. And I acknowledge that Councillor McKechnie does not have his cards with him tonight, so we'll be looking for his hand to be up during the meeting. Thank you, sir. All right, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Item number 3, any members of council have any disclosures to reveal at this time or discuss? Seeing none, if there's anything come up during the meeting, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it at that time. And item number 4 is public participation period. We received one question tonight from Mr. Danny Laws. It's in regards to secondary users of our roads. I guess it's his request is in regards to the secondary users shown on our roads. I had an opportunity to discuss this briefly with our Public Works people, and Dan, our Deputy Director of Public Works, advised me that we, of course, do not have the authority to regulate the use of other users on our roads other than ATVs. That's why we went through this long debate about ATVs. There are a very limited number of things that we can actually restrict on our roads. There are some extreme exceptions when it comes to the new road design and that type of thing. But currently our roads, as I understand it through our Deputy Director of Public Works, we are not able to regulate anything other than that. So I hope that answers your question. If it does not, Danny, Mr. Laws, perhaps I could have you reach out to our Deputy Director of Public Works, and Dan will be able to help you out there. All right, thank you. Council, we have a couple things to talk about, including traffic and the CAO. So our CAO from the NVCA. Deputations, item 5.1, Henry Canton, who's an engineer with Burnside and Associates. He's here to do a presentation for us. I believe he's here. Dan, is that correct? How about Dan, you introduce where we are at this point. There's Mr. Canton, who's just joined us. I'm going to go to you first, Mr. Perot, to just introduce what this presentation is going to be all about. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there was some discussion between senior staff on how to proceed with our traffic study, a comprehensive traffic study, and Henry and I have been kind of going back and forth a little bit on what I'll call a terms of reference or an outline framework for the study. We thought it beneficial to bring that forward to council prior to the completion of the study, just so that if there was anything that we missed, hopefully not, that the council have an input on a brief outline of what Henry has put together for a study to present to council in the coming months. So sort of the background work has been complete for the most part. As council is aware, we did traffic studies counts in about 40 locations back in June. We are hoping or planning to do some more. However, that may have to come as a subsequent to the final report if there's any anomalies or something major comes out of the follow-up studies for the winter. So with that, Henry put together a presentation for council to again outline what he's been or what he's going to look at as far as the study. So I'll pass it over to him.
Thank you very much, Dan. Mr. Canton, if you want to join us on camera here, we'd be happy to have you join our council meeting.
I think I have joined you. I don't, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you just fine, sir.
But you can't see me, is what
That
you're
is
saying,
correct.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is 100%.
Yeah, I know there was an update on the Zoom software today that a couple of us here have had to deal with. So
Yeah. Well, we go, Zoom for us, we go in through the browser, and I'm just not seeing a place to turn on the camera or to share the presentation. So,
all right, perhaps we can just pause for a moment and ask if our clerk could advise if we can get Mr. Canton permission to share his screen. Would you be able to set that up, Pam, as our host?
Yes, if Kayla is there, she can request for Mr. Canton to
I'm sorry.
share his screen. Oh, there he is there.
There's Mr. Canton. We're now copying you here, and I believe we're gonna.
Okay, I think you should be able to see me now, and now I should be able to share a screen as well, right?
Okay, let's see how that goes.
Well, you can see me, right?
I can see you, sir.
Okay, and the sharing of the screen.
It's down at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm looking for it there. Okay, there. Okay, I got her. Okay, I think you should be able to see the screen now. Is that correct?
No, unfortunately, you've disappeared. Kayla, can you assist with this?
Just a second. Okay. Start the video. Okay. It should be sharing right now. Okay.
We've got her now. I see you, and I see the presentation. Okay. I think we're off to a good start.
Oh, you can see the presentation?
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, it's just disappeared again.
No, now it's going to be coming back again. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Okay, we've got it there, Mr. Senton. We've got it good.
Okay, super duper. We're off to the races here then. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the.
You can start slideshow is probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, that's where we're at. So I'll start slideshow here from the beginning. Okay, so the reason that we're coming before council this evening is to get input from council on the methodology, as Dan has mentioned. And I'm just going to quickly go through what the methodology is, and then I'm going to open it up for council to ask any questions they may have or to provide any input. So basically, this is a traffic assessment study of a number of locations within the municipality that have been subject to issues regarding speeding and other issues regarding safety. The goal of this study is to address the safety issues, but also to look at the characteristics of your roads. And the characteristics of the roads go hand in hand with the safety aspect, in addition to the posted speed and the other management of the posted speeds. The analysis and recommendations that we're focusing on here are 44 locations that Dan has mentioned that were speed data was collected by Ontario Traffic Inc. in June of 2020. There were, I think, another 6 locations that they collected as well, but those are on either county roads or on the highway system, the provincial system, and they haven't been, at this point, included in our study. They can be included, that would be at the direction of council. The scope of the study, we are looking at, and we will look at, and have already looked at the traffic calming policies that the municipality has, historical speed data, in particular, just the data that was provided for this year. There may be some other data that if the municipality has other data, we'd be happy to look at that as well. Safety complaints, we haven't been given a lot of issue or information on that, and that's why one of my questions tonight is, do you have more data related to complaints that have come in that
Excuse me,
informed our
Henry.
study? Certainly.
Excuse me. Yeah, could you flip to the next couple of pages? It appears that you haven't moved down pages. We're still seeing just the front page of your presentation.
Oh.
So if you click on item number 2 there, or there, right
Okay.
where your mouse is, just click on it. Maybe double.
Okay.
There you go. That's better. Yeah. So
Okay,
I think
so-
it's going to have to. You have to keep moving it down there. That way we
Yeah,
can
that's
follow
fine.
along.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so the scope
Thank
of
you.
work, as I was mentioning, so we're looking at the analyzing the traffic volume data that's been provided, and that also provided some classification data in relation to trucks and cars and that type of thing. The speed data was provided in various percentiles of the speed data, like the 85th percentile, which is typically taken to be the operating speed on the roadway. 5 year of collision data. We haven't provided collision data at this point, and it depends on how easily that data can be disseminated to us, but we would like to see it if we can, given that it, again, informs the safety issues that may be there. And the existing design and safety issues of those 44 locations. As I mentioned before, the county roads and the highways were not included at this point. What we would be looking at trying to do is to, first of all, review the posted speeds on the roads. That's often a concern that residents have in requesting speed reductions. We would identify and recommend preferred traffic calming. Again, you have a policy. We would look at that policy, but we'd look at also a number of other potential traffic calming mechanisms that aren't currently captured within your policy. And we would look at other engineering design aspects associated with the road that may help to mitigate speeds to a more safe speed limit. We would review best practices for traffic calming. Generally in Canada, it's Transportation Association of Canada. In the States, it's the FHDWA that we look to for guidance on best practices, current practices. And also through our practice with other municipalities, we have some data that has been collected relative to how well some of these traffic calming measures have been functioning. We would identify then if there are any areas of additional study, given that this is supposedly a comprehensive study that moving forward you would be able to use in the future for future requests as well. There may be instances where the amount of work required to actually get to the level of recommending a mitigation may require some additional work beyond this study. That's the scope of the work. The context that we're working into, I'm assuming, the context that we're working into here, most municipalities receive various complaints on speed. It's a fairly common thing among our municipal clients. That is reflected in a number of things. One is the fact that there has been certain societal shifts that have been occurring. The multimodal aspect of travel has changed in the last decade. Quite considerably, actually, and vehicles and cyclists and pedestrians are taking, and transit are taking, or the cyclists, pedestrians, and transit are taking a greater role in utilizing parts of the right-of-way. And there are some other users as well, and I know that you, as a municipality, have had some fairly extensive discussions as of late for the off-road vehicles as well, the ATVs. All of these and today, complete streets are what many municipalities are striving to accommodate. Generally, that is, in its definition, is a sharing of the right-of-way. It may be an equal, as equal as one can get, but one does need to look at the function of the road and whether or not the road is equally shared from the point of view of the volume of users in any particular category. Vision Zero is something that is within the context of this study. Many municipalities are trying to achieve Vision Zero. It doesn't really result in zero collisions. What it does result in, or striving as aspirational goal, is to obtain a to reduce injury collisions and eventually to reduce them to zero. And that's the aspirational goal for that. Human factors within our study will be looked at. The driver expectations is forms a big part of why speeding occurs. Many times drivers will simply be driving almost in an automatic sense, taking the cues from the visual cues that they get as they travel down the road, and not expecting either safety issues or even speed reduction issues that they're not attuned to. And that's one of the reasons that reducing posted speeds, generally is ineffective in trying to moderate the speeds. There's a disconnect in some instances between road design and the land use planning and the resultant safe operating speed. And the way that we like to look at it at Burnside is you have a posted speed. You also have what we call a design speed. The design speed typically has been 10 over the posted speed in urban areas and 20 over the posted speed in rural areas. You can realize that that automatically gives you a disconnect because we're not trying to design for the roads and the users of the roads to actually go those speeds. What it does give you is it gives you some flexibility in addressing the needs of the vehicles, so that if you have inclement conditions and icy conditions and that type of thing, that there's enough leeway within the design to accommodate those conditions for the vehicles. But it does result in that disconnect between other users and the speeds on the roads when you have generally dry conditions. The potential for integration of new technologies. There are new technologies and there's new traffic calming methods that are coming to the forefront and are being used, some on a trial basis and some now permanent and being adopted by municipalities. Also within the automated speed enforcement category, camera enforcement is coming to the forefront in the province currently as well. And that will probably grow over time. Generally, what we're looking for is a practical and effective policy for you and procedures that will fall out of the indirectly and directly out of the analysis we're doing for the 44 locations to try and give you some guidance for the future on strategizing and how you can prioritize the needs within those areas with the limitation of budget and the staff time that you have to address these issues going forward. Okay, the speed and traffic calming criteria that we're following, as I mentioned earlier, there is an existing policy that the municipality has. The TAC also has guidelines for posted speeds where we follow that generally. It looks at risk analysis. We look at the Canadian Guide for Traffic Calming, which is relatively recent. It's the second edition, 2018. And that gives a number of options associated with traffic calming. We would also look at, which you have used, the speed display devices within your municipality, and there are guidelines and warrant requirements that are out there from TAC associated with those. And then generally for the road itself and the design of the road, we look at the TAC guidelines and also the MTO Ontario Traffic Manual guidelines. That they give us information that pertains to traffic controls and line markings and pavement markings and signage and that type of thing. So we want to make sure that the road itself is designed as safely as possible, and that in some instances it may only be a localized area that requires some improvement, and it's not the whole road that requires the improvement. And then similarly, best practices for other municipalities, we have a number that we work for and others that we have their policies, and we'd be looking at that in a comparative sense. The area that we're looking at, or the roads that were identified for us, and again, we have not really expanded what was provided, but these are the roads. It's a combination of rural roads and some urban roads, primarily urban road or rural roads, I believe, is the larger percentage, and some urban, and again, some mostly hardtop roads and some gravel roads as well. You can see from this map that the primary focus is the north-south, because that's where a lot of people are going from the point of view of traveling through the township to Wasaga Beach or Collingwood, and so they have the higher speed potential by non-residents. There are some east-west roads identified as well, or were collected where the information was collected. The posted speed, we look at the posted speed to start with, because the posted speed, falling out of that, your policy addresses some exceedances of posted speed, 10 or 15 over the posted speed, as being a trigger for more extensive review. Generally, what we try to get to here in the posted speed category, in the review of the posted speed, is to look at probably 7 or 8 different areas, and you can see those here, that really increase the risk for higher speed. So coming out of this, it may be the result of this may be that the posted speed from a road category or a road characteristic point of view is appropriate, and it may be that that it still needs to be reduced given other aspects. But for this initial review, it would tell us whether the risk is there for these particular items, and if it is there, then we may end up suggesting that it stays at that posted speed. There are default speeds now in the province, as you probably know, 50 kilometers an hour in the urban areas and 80 in the rural areas. Sometimes you need to have lower speeds in the urban areas and also in the rural areas. So once we've established that posted speed, the desirable posted speed, we then do a comparator between what the operating speeds are, which, as I mentioned, was the 85th percentile speeds, and the posted speed, and the target speed. And the target speed is, in our context, is the safe speed that we're striving to achieve, given all of the other factors that go into the analysis. And so that includes the road design itself and the planning context considerations, and the type of users that are on the road, primary and secondary users. Traffic calming policy considerations would be identified, and I don't know if I had that there. And then falling out of all of that, we would be looking to recommend traffic calming measures on or reducing traffic volumes or diverting traffic. We'd be looking at those aspects, because sometimes when traffic calming is put on one road, it creates a problem on another road. So the deliverables, we anticipate coming back to council with our study report, a draft study report. We present it to council. It would have the recommendations of the traffic calming, also the recommendations of the design and planning aspects to maintain safe streets, and identifying the opportunity for any additional study if required. And then subsequent to that, we'd revise the study with any further input from council. So the questions that we had, and there probably are, or maybe some additional questions that that council has, we want to make sure that we have a sufficient area identified that is going to meet your purposes. Secondly, that the methodology that we're anticipating here also is along the lines of what you hope to achieve by this study, and then also whether or not the public needs further involvement, or any involvement for that matter, in the study that we're doing. The work is not being undertaken as a class environmental assessment of any sort, or through that type of public input mechanism. And so I've thrown it in here to indicate that if you want to put out a survey, or want us to put out a survey, we can do that. We have found that is somewhat value in the past, especially in urban areas, when there are options associated with the type of improvements that might be proposed on that. That is my presentation, and I'm going to stop sharing here and turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much, Henry. I think that's very helpful. Perhaps you could try to turn your camera back on. It would be helpful for us, as well as the viewers that are watching on YouTube, to be able to see you as we have any questions. So members of council, this has certainly been something we've talked about at length, and we are all hearing it as we're elected officials in our community from our residents about speed. So we're at the point where we're going to release this information as soon as we can get it done. So what questions do you have of Henry as a road expert, or perhaps Dan as one of our other road experts that's on the call here tonight? I see some cards already up. Like I say, I'm going to write down. I got Leishman, Lamers, McKechnie, and Patterson so far. Go ahead, Councillor Leishman.
Thank you. I was wondering why you stopped at Simcoe Road 10 for concession 9 and concession 7, especially concession 9. What I found is, because we live on that corner, people are coming by our house on their way to Muskoka. And what they do is they come up to County Road 9, take 9 to Center Line, and then go straight up Center Line to concession 9, and then gun it along concession 9 right to Strongville Road. And some of them don't even stop at the stop sign. So I would really appreciate it if you could add the rest of concession 9 into that study, please.
Yeah, we're happy to add any more. We do need to get some additional traffic data then collected in order to do the analysis work, which I think the municipality.
I've never asked for any data collected on concession 9 just because I know what's happening there. But if you need some backup, I will ask for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Canton, for answering that question quickly. Let's go to Councillor McKechnie next, and then Broderick. Councillor McKechnie next, then Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two questions, actually. They're fairly quick. So on the map, I noticed, and I'm just looking at my ward and Ward 2 here on the 10th concession. There are a couple of gaps there. So you've got the 10th concession basically all laid out in orange, but then there's a couple of gaps. And I noticed there's some gaps on some of the roads in the other wards as well. Is there a reason for those gaps, or is that just yeah, what's the reason why the gaps there?
Well, there shouldn't be gaps if it runs between intersections, okay? Because we basically are looking at, like, we were given data at a specific location, right? They collected at one location. Right. And so what we would do is we would typically be looking at that whole block, okay? When we look at, say, posted speeds, et cetera, we'd also look at the specific location where the speeds, where the data was collected. So there shouldn't be gaps if it runs between intersections.
Okay, well, it's just a map thing then, I guess. And my second question is on your automated speed limit guidelines form that you showed us, and I think that's on page 7. And one of the items there that you're going to be looking at is cyclist exposure. I'm just wondering, how are you going to determine cyclist exposure? Like there's, I'm just thinking on the 6th concession on Fairgrounds Road on a sunny weekend, there's probably several hundred cyclists that go along there. So how will you determine cyclist exposure?
Yeah, this speed formula here was set up where you could collect data associated with the users. So what we have is a situation where if they've collected data in an urban area, they will pick up cyclists as well in the data. But in an area like yours where it is recreational cycling, basically we're going to rely on doing some due diligence on the cycle clubs in the area where they actually have routes, etc., and then anything that we can get from your staff to indicate just what the users are of those roads on those areas.
So will you be contacting the Collingwood Cycle Club then to determine the routes and the number of cyclists in the club?
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. Dan, I saw you indicate, wanted to add anything on that, Dan? Or are you comfortable at that point?
No, Your Worship, I'm comfortable. I was just writing stuff down. That's all.
Okay, great. All right. All right. Okay, so next I have Broderick, then Lamers, and then Deneen. Go ahead, Mr. Broderick next. Oh, and then Patterson right after Deneen. Go ahead, Mr. Broderick. Your microphone is muted again. Try that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, my question's been answered.
Oh, great. Thank you, John. Mr. Lamers is next then. Mr. Lamers, then Deneen, then Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This question is for Dan. Back a few months ago, we had a motion put forward to reduce the speed on 1213 Side Road, and I thought we were going to add this to the list, and I don't see it there.
Good question. Dan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Lamers. I'll have to, if I hadn't sent that information to Henry, or I will definitely. We did do a 7-day or 6-day study on that road, on that section you're speaking of. So township did that with our equipment following the full data collection. So I'll get that information to Henry to include.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were aware of that one because I did see it come up in your July 27th meeting. So I was aware that that one still needed to be collected.
All right, thank you.
The data,
All right.
the data is collected. I just need to forward it over to Henry.
Okay, good.
Great, great. Councillor Deneen.
There. I'm wanting to include as well the little piece of road on Fairgrounds from the 3334 to Beechwood Road. I've had complaints from the residents there that they said when the overpass was put in, they were told that the speed would be reduced on their road as well, and it never came to fruition. One of the residents there said he had a letter to that respect, and he was going to look for it for me, but I never pursued that because that was back at election time that he said that, and he had a little bit of difficulty within his family, I think, just a hardship there. So I never went back, but I could ask him again. But apparently when they were doing that overpass, he was under the impression that part was going to be reduced in speed.
Got to be honest with you, Councillor Deneen, I've heard that too. Certainly from members of the Great Northern Exhibition have shared that with me, that they accessing the site with unbelievable speeders coming along there. So Mr. Senton and Dan, you want to consider that from Beechwood Road south to
3334.
Local airport road, exactly.
Okay, I've noted it.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Patterson is next. Anybody else? Looking for anybody else? Okay, Councillor Patterson, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I had a couple of comments on the scope of work, and then on the next slide was the context. I just want not to forget the point when we're looking at cyclists. I'm glad you're following up there. Your best contact would be Simcoe Cycle. They include a broader area. But Collingwood Cycle Club certainly would be instrumental too. I've had several conversations with Simcoe Cycle. They were working on a strategic plan long term, which is difficult on our rural roads, and they were trying to establish a cycle trail. So, they have some information you might be able to review.
Okay.
The scope of work, I heard you say, that, first of all, it appears that from some of the questions that we need to refresh our memories. We hired two groups to get one to collect the information and one to analyze it. So I think that's what you're hearing is if there's gaps there. I think that's true, Dan?
Comment, Dan?
Yeah, through your worship, yes, to Councillor Patterson. We hired Ontario Traffic Inc. to collect the data over those locations. So the reasoning for the collection of the data, or the areas that were collected, we had to pick a number of locations that met the council set budget. So those locations were at like 40, 44, whatever, however many we got. But that's why we selected where we selected. It was primarily the north-south roads that we know that have issues, and some of the east-west roads that, higher volume roads. So that's why it was set at 40, 44 is agree. We got to put it many more traffic counts, but we're set with a limit.
Yeah. So that's and the money came from deploying those ADTs, and so that when we're asking to add things now on the list, are you thinking of going back to OTI, or are you thinking of doing it with our own equipment? Keep the cost down. How are you going to handle that?
If through your worship to Councillor Patterson, yeah, if there aren't too many, we do have 2 devices here, just similar to we collected the data on 1213 Sidewood with one of the collectors. Currently we have one out on our section of County Road 91 out by the 10th concession. So we're collecting data this week on that section of road. They're inconspicuous. There's no tubes on them. They seem to be very accurate. So those are something that we purchased this year. We purchased 2 of them. So if there are just a smattering of locations that we need to collect some more data here, we can do that fairly quickly.
Okay,
that is great news. Yeah,
I should have started with an overall comment. I was impressed with the scope of work on this. So I was pleasantly pleased with the fact that there is a lot of potential analysis here, because I think one of the things I hope that we end up with is a set of usable criteria, common criteria that allows us, instead of responding to 1s and 2s for stop signs and speed management and whatever else, traffic calming measures, that we had a term, not just a term of reference, but we had a set of criteria that we could refer back to for the public, why we make these decisions and sometimes why we don't. So I'm happy with that. Given that, I heard you say that that you hadn't gotten any incident reports yet. I would assume traffic history from the OPP in particular. Is that something that we hope to still get in time to include? Because I think that's kind of essential.
Yeah, we've requested it from your staff. Like, we can't get it directly from OPP or MTO, but the municipality can. So we'd look to you to provide that information.
very good. There's a combination of how we can get that information. We can go directly to the OPP, or we can actually draw upon information from our fire department as a result of motor vehicle collisions. That they have statistics on various intersections and portions of our roads. So perhaps Dan can prepare that information, Councillor Patterson. That's a good point. Thank you.
My last question, or at least comment on the scope of work chart, is what's your thoughts on leaving out or including settlement areas, especially the entrances into and the exits out of, where people tend to be in a hurry to get here and then in a hurry to leave? And name the streets like in Krumer, George Street, and Concession 3 and 6-7.
These are, you're referring to municipal roads that are coming into the settlement areas, or you're looking at, though, under your jurisdiction, right? Under the municipal
absolutely
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So the thought is that it depends on. I mean, traffic calming in those areas is always a challenge because of the fact that you're going from higher speed to lower speed. And, the actual response to traffic calming in those areas also is somewhat different, because there's a gateway feature that oftentimes is something that should be considered for those. And then the transition of speeds are also a consideration in those areas. So, I think that they definitely are an area that can be studied. At this point, I'm not sure if they have been identified in the initial work that was done as far as the traffic collection is concerned. But yeah, they tend to be, areas where you do get complaints for those reasons. So we're happy enough to look at those. It's just a matter of determining which areas, and as Dan was saying, there's a practical consideration as to which ones and how many from that point of view. So we defer to you and to council on that.
Councillor Patterson, anything further?
Well, I do, but I'll yield my time now to someone else. It says I have some comments on the context chart as well. But
Sure.
But have someone else if they've got any.
Okay. Is there any other member of council has any questions or suggestions? Looking around. Okay. I actually want to support Councillor Patterson on that ideal of roads that are coming into our settlement areas. For certain, the Bata Side Road is one of those roads that enters into Nottawa, goes right by our fire hall, goes right by our Nottawa school, goes right by a church that's in our community. And so there are, and a residential area as well. So it has been targeted, and I believe it is on the survey right now. So Mr. Senton, you can consider that as one of those items that's that Councillor Patterson's talking about, is a road that's actually entering one of our, or exiting one of our settlement areas. Councillor Janine's card is up. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I just wanted to make mention, I just spent a little bit of time checking things out. And that's, the Bata Road is the only one that basically isn't, well, other than Stainer with Clearview Meadows, but the high school's out front, and it's on Highway 26. And the new Lowell School's on County Road 9, as is Creamore's. But Nottawa's is the only one that is on a side road. So that's why that road is particularly important. Thanks.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. All right, members of council, anything further? Councillor Patterson has questions. I've got one statement that I want to start to put out here right now, and that is that you asked the question, Mr. Senton, and I'm interested to hear your comment as well as that of our staff, how we will, what the mechanism would be for public input on this. I believe a survey is probably the appropriate way to go, but I'm unsure as to how that survey question would be. I mean, we can simply just, what's your complaint? Or actually create some context to support what Councillor Patterson's saying is on how we make decisions on roads that we could frame into some questioning. So, Mr. Senton, have you got some experience in that and gathering public input on this?
Yeah, definitely. We could put together a survey. The survey, it depends on the timing that one goes out with the survey. You either go out early on, in which case then you're getting some input into the analysis, etc., or you're trying to suggest certain mitigation work, in which case then you're further along in the study and you're suggesting that this is the new policy and this is what, or this is a potential policy or items within that policy. And also these are the type of traffic calming mechanisms that are being investigated, etc. So it does depend on when you want to approach the public, or if you want to approach the public on the study. You know, I think from the point of view of useful input as early as possible usually makes sense from my point of view. We do ask the questions. I mean, there's various questions that we'd ask in the study. We'd put together a draft and send it to your staff and to vet the study itself as far as the type of questions that are being asked. But you're right. It can have a tendency of just getting sort of open-ended responses, if you will, much like you could appreciate for any of these type of issues. They tend to be fairly high profile. So again, it's really a matter of the value that you're trying to derive from it. And I think the goal here is to try and come up with a system of safe roads that actually have, issues associated with them. And unfortunately, some of the responses that end up happening for some of this speed control issues, they do require more extensive work to really address, right? And so that's where you kind of run into the issue, I think, of, well, we've got an area. Well, what is the reason for that, and is it actually feasible to get the numbers down, right? I mean, we're trying to get the numbers down. All of these traffic calming mechanisms and postings will attempt to do that, but they're not in and of themselves oftentimes the full solution. So you're still going to have a potential for risk and for conflict.
Okay, I tend to agree with what you're saying. Dan, would you have any input on how we would do a public input mechanism or how he would do a survey. What's your experience in that area on road traffic issues like this?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not really a lot of experience with that. However, my thought is that we could try, again, working with RJ Burnside and what they've done in the past, but to do some sort of an online request survey similar to what we did with the buses. I suspect a lot of it is that my road or X road should be reduced speed limit, and how much weight behind that do you take. I suspect that's that's going to be a lot of the request is lower speed limits where maybe the results of the study are not going to show that speeds should be reduced in those areas. So
okay, so gentlemen, the 2 points to the experts, not to members of council, the 2 points that come to my mind when we're talking about this is that council has certainly heard about this issue constantly. This is not just something that's popped up. We have heard about speeding going on for some time. Each of us as councillors or mayors, deputy mayors, we have had exchanges with members of the public where we have certainly heard that. So I think where we are is that we should be receiving a report with your recommendations. And I would suggest that before council adopt it, that's when we ask for the public to make comment on it or to suggest whether they really like something or they really dislike a recommendation. Because to be honest, right now we're hearing lots of comments about what we have today. So I think without having to rehash all of those issues and hearing all those questions, once again, we've already got a pretty good plan here as to what study is going to be done. We've created the traffic calming procedures through the bylaw that Dan presented earlier this year. And so I think we've got a really good opportunity here to get a really good professional report done by Burnside and have it reviewed by our staff, presented it to council, make it a document where it's public, and then we can ask for the public to give us their input. Like, we don't need to pass it immediately. We need to hear what the public have to say on these suggested actions. Gentlemen, I think that if that seems right, I mean, I think you've got probably a lot of information already. I'm not sure if you need more direction from the public and then through council. I'm unsure as to whether we need more or not. Are we comfortable, Dan, where we are? Go ahead.
Your Worship, thank you. So you would suggest, Henry had mentioned it in the in his presentation, but that would be similar to what you would the process in an EA process is. They produce something, you produce a document or produce a presentation of some sort, allow a commenting period of X number of days and receive public input. Is that what I'm hearing you suggest?
Well, I'm suggesting to you folks, if that, as the professionals, whether that would be acceptable to you, before I ask my counselors if that's something that they want to do too. So it sounds like
I would defer that then to Henry, if that's appropriate for his report.
Henry?
No, I think that's a practical way of addressing it for sure. I mean, and they'll comment on the presentation that we make. That'll be open for the public. So it'll be a matter at that point to refine it again, get the input from both council and the public at that time, and then hopefully the final document will reflect those comments.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Members of council, is that an acceptable path? Any comments on my suggestion? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think it's right in line with, I think one of the most important things I read in the report, it's in the context, was the societal shift to multimodal travel. I think that's what we're experiencing here in Krumer. The roads were designed for farm vehicles and just basically much lower levels of traffic and not as much tourism traffic and not as much weekend traffic. And I think we're experiencing the two mindsets are our roads are fine the way they are, and then the other extreme is they're unbearable. And part of the way I think the survey, at least the public presentation, could be formed, which is, so I support the mayor's comments about the process. Do it because you give them something solid to talk to. And then from that, I think we should be able to draw some kind of informational and educational program as well. I think it's important here that however we communicate back to the public, part of it is lessons learned by us and should be things that the public should be able to appreciate in terms of how we manage traffic in the township. So I like that. If I want to continue my comments on the context, just for Henry, what we've heard many times is drivers drive by their personal perception of safe driving. Okay, and I heard a little bit of comments earlier in the presentation that if you try to lower the speed, but the human factors, the driver's expectations, often those kinds of traffic calming measures aren't effective. But here's the question that I have in my mind when I go through some of this stuff. TAC says risk sets the speed. In other words, higher risk, lower speeds. But that sort of flies in the face, into my mind, of, well, drivers will drive to their safe expectation. How do you assess that? How do you marry the two ideas when you're doing an assessment of posted speed?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's a matter of looking at all of the inputs. So the TAC is one input. It looks at risk. It looks at certain aspects associated with determining that risk. It is not the only aspect to look at, and I think that we're not simply just going to crunch the numbers through that and say, well, this is what the speed needs to be. So we're trying to marry those other considerations, okay, whether it's input because of, either collision rates or because of conflict potential, okay, in those areas that isn't adequately captured. The difficulty with speed management and with traffic management is that it and I think even you have said this in the past, every road is different. Okay, we do a lot of road need studies too. Every road is different and the needs on that road. And so we're trying to get to a point where yes, you can set some triggers, you can set some ways of assessing things and clearing them through the system when you get requests. But there's a fair amount of judgment that also gets brought to bear there. So it isn't going to be a matter of saying, well, it hits this number or doesn't hit this number, and so therefore this must be like this. It's the engineering judgment that goes into actually coming up with the solution is a fine line. It's basically treading between different users and different needs, and what we can provide you is information that does inform your decisions from the point of view of what the industry is doing, but also with respect to what that risk is. And it's quite well understood in the urban areas, for instance, that that if you have a collision with a pedestrian at 50 kilometers, you've got a fairly high percentage of risk in it being a fatal collision. Whereas if you get it down to a 40 or 30, then it goes, the other direction. So those are the kind of aspects I think that we hope you will get out of this study, so that, so that there will be that marrying the two together. Because as I said in my presentation, the actual design of the road, which is for one purpose, isn't necessarily for it's counterintuitive to the other purposes. So we're trying to mesh the two together, and that is going to be a bit of a judgment, and we'll make our recommendations, and council can, take that as for what it is, and hopefully it'll be close to what is the solution.
Well, thank you, Henry. Tom?
Just the last 2 points, mostly on the question side, the last chart. and then we've talked about it already, I just want to put my vote in for 2. Absolutely, the public should be involved in some form, and I like the general idea we put together. One of the things, because it's one of the top concerns we hear all the time. And if you ask them, if you did a survey, they would say speed, volume. And I'm hearing more and more now noise, traffic noise. I don't know how we get at that. I don't know how you calm noise other than eliminating. It's the weekend traffic, tourism traffic, motorcycles. It's a big deal too. So I would, maybe I don't know, maybe we just have to acknowledge the fact that there are some things we can't manage 100%, but I would like some thought on the noise. The last question I have for Henry is, what's your first impression of Clearview's traffic?
Good question.
Well, you know, the data that's been collected so far would seem to indicate that, again, depending on what the trigger number is, okay, as far as exceeding the operational speed, even the posted speed, if that indeed is the target speed that you're trying to get for any particular area, the speed volume data that was collected would indicate that you have a fairly significant number of speeders, okay, that are already hitting those thresholds. So, I mean, if you set it, say, at 10 over the posted speed, there's probably 50% of the collected data would indicate that they're exceeding, you know, the operational speed are exceeding that. And for the higher speed ones, that if you set it at a 15 over the threshold, which again is a matter of some subjectivity, but then, you know, it goes up to well, it's actually, I think that one is about 50%, and the other one is 75% over the 10. So you end up with a fairly high number of speeding incidents. Okay, so off the top, I'm saying that I think you have a municipality, its location, long, straight, paved roads, etc. People using them that aren't local and maybe are going through the municipality. You know, those ones are definitely showing up in the statistics. So, you know, our job in this study is to try and figure out, now, what do we do? Okay, what is the answer to those things? But just, you know, at this preliminary point, until we get to that point of really drilling down, I would say that, yeah, there are speed issues in the municipality.
Okay. Good. Last comment is, as we all think of things that after the meeting we should have asked, Dan, are we open to send in any other comments?
Dan?
Yeah, through your worship, certainly, if any members of council think of anything along the way, again, this is just a presentation to council to show where we were heading toward a report. So if there are any additional locations, I think I've heard of maybe 2 or 3. That's certainly something we can handle over the next few weeks. The data, the numbers may be different than what we took in June. You know, according to Councillor Leishman, that you know, her experience is that these happen over the summer periods, and we're heading into winter now. So even though it's nice today, and it has been for the last 5 days, you know, traffic's going to be different here come in the next few weeks. So if we can collect some data now to provide to Henry on certain locations, then we will. But any other comments, concerns that council thinks of after this meeting, then certainly let me know, and I'll forward them on to Henry.
All right. Well, then I would ask members of council if they do have anything additional that they would like to share with Dan, as we are in a public open meeting right now, that they make sure that they share those with all members of council, not just Dan. I mean, Dan obviously will have to work that and manage that suggestion with our contractor, but all members of council should be aware if you've brought up anything other than what we've discussed here tonight. All right, members of council, thank you. I think that I look forward to seeing how we can get through this process, and I'm actually very hopeful that we will have some changes made to help mitigate some of the excessive speeding around our community. So thank you, Henry, for your work so far. I know you've got more work ahead of you, so we'll look forward to seeing you once again.
Okay, take care. Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you, Dan, for your work. Council, it is just a little after 6:30. We do have a public meeting scheduled for 6:30. We do have another deputation, Mr. Havner from the NVCA. So I'm unsure what to do because both of them are standing by. But I do think a public meeting advertised at 6:30 takes precedence. And Mr. Havner is indeed a staff person. So I would ask him if he could remain online to join us immediately following the public meeting. So hopefully someone, perhaps the clerk, can share that information with him, that's what we're going to do, unless he's monitoring the meeting right now. So it is 6:32. Deputy Mayor Burton, I will be passing the chair over to you to conduct the public meeting underneath item 6 of our agenda. And I see you've got some staff members have already joined us, so I'll pass the chair to you, Deputy Mayor, to conduct the public meeting, as is our procedure.
Thank you, Your Worship. We will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. We thank everyone who provided written comments ahead of tonight's public meeting. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please contact the planner in charge of the file. This information will be provided in the presentation. As identified in the notice of public meeting, please be advised that your written comments or requests to be notified will form part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request its removal. If a person or public body does not make written submission to the township with respect to the proposed applications before a decision is made, or a bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision to the local appeal tribunal and may not be added as party to the hearing of an appeal unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The following public meetings will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff, including a brief explanation of the written comments received, an opportunity for the applicant or their agent to present their application and respond to the written comments, and an opportunity for questions by council. We will now begin with our first public meeting with respect to the file on tonight's agenda, and I will call on Rosalind, I believe, is our first speaker tonight.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you, Council and Mayor Measures. I would just like to note, we do have Cameron Sellers, who is the planner for IPS, or Innovative Planning Solutions, joining us, as well as Doug Gray, who is one of the developers, and he's from MGM Developments. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to share my screen with you now and get on with the presentation. Hopefully you can all see my screen. We are here tonight for a public meeting on a zoning bylaw amendment 2020-044ZB, and it's on subject lands 121 Mary Street in Krumer, of course, in the township of Clearview. The subject lands, this is showing a key map of where the property is located, is 121 Mary Street in Krumer. It is the black and gray hatched out area here. My cursor is over it. And for some of you that have been here with the township for a while, you may also be familiar with it as being known as the 80 Edward Street or the Meadows, which was a previous application and file that we had here. The existing policy framework is that the current township official plan designation is residential, and the current zoning on the property is residential high density exception RS6-1, hold 5, and residential high density exception RS6-7, hold 5. This is just a map showing you the existing official plan designation. And as mentioned, the designation is residential. It is outlined in the red outlined border here. The existing zoning bylaw map is the next map on the screen. It is, again, the property is outlined in the red, and as mentioned, it is zoned residential high density exception RS6-1 hold 5, and residential high density exception RS6-7 hold 5. The proposal is to zone a portion of the subject lands from residential high density exception RS6-7H5 zone to residential high density exception RS6-1 hold 5. In 2017, Bylaw 1770 was approved for the subject lands, and the current application is making slight changes to that existing bylaw. Currently, the majority of the property, as shown, is zoned residential high density exception RS6-1 hold 5. And the effect of the application would be to zone the entire property to the residential high density exception RS6-1 hold 5. Having one zone on the property will allow the proposed residential buildings on the property to go from 3 to 2 proposed buildings. The site will still contain 72 units, and the units will be divided into 2 36-unit buildings. The hold symbol 5 is proposed to contain the following conditions and will be lifted when the following conditions have been met. Adequate sanitary water, stormwater services and facilities and roads are available to service the development, and the site plan approval has been obtained and any agreement has been entered into with the municipality. I will now briefly go over the changes to the current bylaw that are proposed. And as mentioned, this was a bylaw 1770 that was approved back in 2017. So the current zoning is for 54 units divided between 2 buildings, and an additional 18 units in a 3rd building on the site. And what we're going to propose to change to is that all 72 units will be divided in between the 2 buildings. So 36 units in each building. Currently, all lots and blocks within RS6-1 zone shall be considered one lot for the purposes of zoning. We will be removing this particular condition in the zoning bylaw, as the current developer is proposing no blocks or separate lots, and it will remain as one property. Parking spaces and loading spaces do not require setbacks to residential zones or to the lots or blocks within the draft plan of subdivision, and can be placed in any yard pursuant to the site plan approval. In this case, we are going to be changing that loading spaces are required to be set back 3 meters to the property lines. And in this case, there will be no changes to the setbacks to parking spaces, as they are already currently meeting our zoning bylaw requirements. Currently, an apartment building may be included in an underground parking structure. We are not proposing any changes to that condition, and it will be included in the bylaw. Currently, outdoor amenity spaces, landscape buffers and screens, parking areas, loading spaces, and garbage storage shall be implemented pursuant to the site plan approval. We are planning to remove this particular condition, as all of the elements currently do comply with all the zoning provisions. The next condition is a landscape buffer having a minimum width of 16 meters shall be provided along the exterior side yard or along Edward Street. The bylaw will not change this condition, and it will be included in the proposed bylaw. No structures or no buildings or structures are permitted within the landscape buffer except the stormwater management, pond, emergency road, and utility infrastructure. Again, no change to this condition, and it will is proposed to move forward in the new bylaw. Currently in the existing bylaw, masonry or stone fence will be a minimum height of 1 meter along the southerly perimeter of all parking areas. Again, no change. This will be included in the bylaw moving forward. A principal use or main building shall not be required for the construction and use of accessory buildings and structures. We are proposing to remove this condition as once site plan is approval is given, all development can occur concurrently. And the final condition is section 2.83, outdoor living areas for lots in a residential zone to the bylaw 0654 shall not apply to those land zoned RS6-1. And we are proposing to remove this condition as it's no longer a condition in the zoning bylaw. And the proposed changes are also proposed to provisions within the current bylaw, and there are only really 4 changes. The first change is to the minimum lot front yard, which is the west property line. It currently is 57 meters. It will be changed to 55. And the minimum rear yard setback, which is the east property line, is 19 meters, will be changed to 15. The minimum exterior side yard, which is the south property line, is currently 68 meters and will be changed to 65. No other changes to the zoning provision proposed. Notice in circulation. Notice of the subject zoning bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Planning Act on October 20th, 2020. The notification was given through mail out and posting of a sign on the property, and details of that application and supporting materials have been made available to the public online and have been circulated to the relevant commenting agencies. At this time in the public meeting, I will be summarizing some of the comments that we have received to date on the application. Planning staff have received 3 comments. I have circulated them to council last week and to the planning consultant and developer. The first comment is from Jeremy and Carol, who reside at 44 George Street. In essence, their concerns are related to the way that the building is proposed to be looking, and they are objecting to the zoning bylaw for the property on the basis that the buildings to be subsequently built, as described in your notice, are aesthetically unpleasant and inconsistent with the theme of the homes built on the adjoining Edward George Street subdivision, and in addition are to be built with materials as described on the drawings, which are non-durable and consequently will not survive the test of time. They further go on to mention that they understand that the rezoning objective and that the permits for the building of the condos are separate actions. However, they would like to register this objection to ensure that the township and the property developers understand their concerns that the buildings need to be modified to make them of a higher quality and style more compatible with the neighborhood, the village's historical buildings, and the newly designed village green, which collectively is why Krumer is often described as quaint. The second set of comments is from Susan at 127 Mary Street. And essentially, Susan has a number of questions, which I will read to you. Her first question is, how close to the front of our house will the sidewalk run? Her second question is, will this sidewalk run to a sidewalk that will already be in place to take pedestrians to the downtown core? And why have a sidewalk that does not take you to another well-maintained sidewalk? Or if not, why now? Number 3 is, when putting the sidewalk in, why not bury hydro lines at the same time? Her fourth question is, will this sidewalk be maintained so it can be used at any time of the year and not go to ruins as the other sidewalks in Krumer? Her fifth question is, how much of my parking area in my park driveway will be lost? Sixth question is, who pays for the damage done to the driveway and lawn during the installation, and why, and will repairs be done properly, not in patches? Her next question is, what will happen to my rural mail delivery? And her next question is, if I'm given a postal box, do I get that free of charge forever? And will it be closed so I don't have to travel to it? What will happen to snowmobile traffic? She doesn't want them closer to the house or cutting across the driveway or destroying property and sidewalk in their tracks. And her final question is, will medical support, physicians, etc. in Krumer be increased to accommodate the continued increase of population? She further goes on to say that her concerns are many and above what she has written. She does hope that they are taken seriously and that they will be addressed. She's taking this time to pass them on so that she can be kept in the loop as things move forward, and that she hopes that she can still participate and have a say when she feels necessary. She further goes on to ask that that the people residing at 127 Mary Street be treated with respect, and that you put yourselves in her shoes, watching to see how you can change her, or watching how her personal space is going to change and what future impacts it will have on her and her property and its value and appearance, keeping in line with Krumer quaintness and standards of the
Probably. Well,
the last comment is from Pierre, who also resides at 127 Mary Street. And he he starts out by saying, in order for my wife and I to provide an educated and meaningful input into the changes impacting his property and its value forthcoming from the impacts of what appears to be a drastic reduction in the area in the front of his home, he needs to have some more information, and he's hoping in the form of an approved engineer's drawings. The implementation of the sidewalk in front of my house will take the majority of the space. Where will I now park, and will I be subject to foot traffic and the dangers and noise from the what's currently allowing snow machine trails 6 feet from his door? He further goes on to say the recent ATV, UTV report from staff confirms to Krumer residents that staff does not have the competence or interest to determine the best for the community. 10 years ago, the Tatham report recommended changes to the way Clearview determines the need for safe pedestrian access to and from Gowan Park, and despite numerous attempts to have these recommendations followed, staff and council have still refused to bring current infrastructure into healthy and safety and comfort of residents ahead of wishes of staff and the mayor. He then has a number of questions. Will the township be applying a similar constraint to snow machines as to ATV, UTV traffic? Will they also be banned from streets of Krumer, or are we going to have to put up with, as we do now, with groomers and snow machines traveling late nights on new walkways using the non-existent current roadways around our property? When will all of the affected homeowners be receiving approved engineering drawings that a lay homeowner can reference to a marker such as spray dot in the middle of Mary Street so they can visually understand? Exactly how many parking spaces will be lost? Where Canada Post will allow me to put my rural mailbox, and if no longer allowed a rural mailbox, who will be paying for a postal box if community mailbox is not being provided? Will I have a community mailbox or on or near my property? And confirm the height, locations, and warranty for fences and any other structures required by this process. Will privacy fences be built and paid by the developer? Will they be 8 or 9 feet high? And do I have any input into the materials and colors of the structure? Will my cedar hedge be removed? Will there be any changes to infrastructure provided by others such as electric and gas companies, and will impact sightlines or introduce impediments to my safe access and usage of any repositioned parking and access areas? Finally, what steps is the township taking to ensure that all records of this process for the period covered by retention bylaw, especially those involving attendance by permission only through conferencing, Zoom, and access code unique to that individual without access to the general public, to be kept updated on issues concerning this construction and writing take place. If these records are only to be available from YouTube or some other commercial organization, what guarantees are you providing that the information will be maintained as a taxpayer and allow taxpayers access for the records retention period? To that end, I am hereby requesting copies of all audio and video records not covered by the minuting of the minutes be provided to me on DVD or memory stick so that my legal counsel can maintain a full ongoing transcript of this process. And that concludes the comments received.
Thank you, Rosalind. I understand that Mr. Sellers and Mr. Gray are both here to speak on behalf of the applicant. Are they available? I'm unable to see them, so Madam Clerk, maybe you could advise if they are tuned in and they are available to speak.
Would it be helpful if I stopped sharing my screen?
Yes, probably that would help.
They are present, Your Worship. So once Rosalind stops sharing her screen, then they'll be able to share their screen.
Okay, I'll call on Mr. Sellers first, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone.
Oh, so that was, sorry, I'll just interrupt. That's the other planner, Cameron Sellers from ISP. So I haven't finished my actual planning presentation, but if there is other people from the public, I guess, that would like to speak, this might be the time to do that. I'll just, sorry, Cameron.
So I understand. I saw that you read Pierre's letter. Now I understand that he was available to speak as well. Does he still want to speak, or have you covered what was in his letter?
Hi, sorry. Yes, Pierre is here. Yes, thank you very much for, oh, hang on. Thank you very much for letting me be part of this. It's a big impact on my house. That's my biggest concern. But at the moment, it's more of a rezoning that you're looking for. So I think my questions and concerns were posed perfectly by Rosalind. I thank you very much for that. But I mean, at another time, I guess this would be more important to talk about. Or should you bring it all up now, like the sidewalk, the hedge, entranceway to the building, etc. So,
Pierre, this would be the time if you have questions of Rosalind or the applicant. But typically, we would give the applicant a chance to speak first, and then let somebody from the public ask questions.
Well, I would go for that. Let the applicant speak first. I would gladly wait because my questions will concern, like, why can't the entranceway to the apartment be on Edward Street as opposed to beside my house? Also the parking. Literally, if you take the sidewalk, it'll be only 6 feet from my door.
So Pierre, so you have questions you want to ask. So perhaps we could hear from the applicant.
Okay.
And then,
yeah.
And then you can ask those questions. Because some of those questions you're asking may be answered when they're doing their presentation.
But that's what I thought. Okay. I thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Mr. Sellers. Sorry for that bit of confusion. Go ahead, Rosalind.
Sorry, if I can just finish my presentation first, then we might then go to
I'm sorry, Rosalind, I didn't realize you hadn't finished your presentation.
Yeah, sorry. I thought we were going to have the public.
Presentation.
Thank you. So we're almost finished here. Contact information again for anyone who's watching. If they would like to provide further information, this is my contact information. And final slide, I believe. It's more just a wrap up on where we are in the process. Currently, we're at the public meeting stage. Staff will continue to receive comments and consider them. Staff will then make a recommendation and report to council. Council will then either approve or deny the application, and that decision will be mailed out. There will be an appeal period, and if no appeal is received, then the decision does come into force and effect. And that does conclude my presentation. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll stop sharing, and yeah, you can move on.
Thank you, Rosalind. Okay, for the third time, Mr. Sellers, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Sellers. I'm a planner with Innovative Planning Solutions here on behalf of MDM Developments regarding an application for zoning bylaw amendment on lands known as 121 Mary Street in Krumer. Subject lands are outlined in red in this image with an approximate area of 1.9 hectares or 4.7 acres. The lands possess 2 road frontages, including 70 meters on Mary Street and approximately 200 meters on Edward Street East. The lands also possess frontage on an unopened right-of-way to the north as well. The lands are relatively flat in nature, with a mixture of previously disturbed areas and treed areas throughout. Currently, the lands are vacant of structures and buildings. This slide displays the subject lands outlined in red, illustrating the land's position relative to the surrounding land uses within Krumer. Surrounding uses include existing residential, future residential, institutional, County of Simcoe lands, as well as open space parkland. The Creedon Valley Care Community, along with Gowan Memorial Park, can also be found in close proximity to the subject property. This slide illustrates the land use designation and zoning that currently apply to the lands. As shown on the left, the lands are designated as residential in the township official plan. As shown on the right, the lands are currently zoned residential high density exception 1 and exception 7 within the township zoning bylaw, each of which possess a holding provision 5. With respect to zoning, the current in effect zoning was approved and implemented through the Ontario Municipal Board. The zoning permits a total of 72 residential units within 3 three-story buildings. The RS6-1 zone permits 54 units within 2 three-story buildings, each containing 27 units. And the RS6-7 zone permits a total of 18 residential units within 1 three-story building, positioned near the intersection of Mary Street and Edward Street East. This slide illustrates the development form which is currently approved for the subject lands. The 2 larger 27-unit buildings are positioned in the north portion of the site, with parking, amenity, landscape, and stormwater features positioned south of these buildings. You'll note significant setbacks of these 2 buildings to both Mary Street and to Edward Street East, respectively. The smaller buildings positioned near the Mary Street and Edward Street intersection with much smaller setbacks and separations to these streets. It is our understanding that this 3rd building caused historical opposition throughout many years of development proceedings. The revised development concept can be seen here. The proposal includes 2 buildings containing 36 residential units each in condominium tenure. This development contains the same 72 residential units as is permitted by zoning today. However, it proposes these units within 2 buildings rather than 3. The 2 36-unit buildings will maintain the same 3-story height maximum, while also maintaining the same approximate locations for parking, amenities, stormwater, and landscaping. The most significant change proposed by this application is the elimination of the third 18-unit building. Consultation has taken place with township staff, the Krumer Area Residents Association, or CARA, as well as neighbors within the vicinity of this property. And we've received overwhelming feedback that the elimination of this third building is in the best interests of everyone. In recent days, ISM architects have prepared these architectural renderings to provide a visual of the proposed development as seen from multiple angles. These renderings display the 3-story massing, central lobby, preliminary grading, and entry exit to the buildings and underground parking. The renderings also illustrate the residential units and balconies throughout, while highlighting a potential color and material scheme. This slide displays building elevations as seen from the north, south, and east sides, while also illustrating a building cross-section. It is also important to note that the developer MDM has experience with development and construction of medium-density buildings such as these within smaller market areas. MDM has experience in areas such as Tottenham, Gravenhurst, and Muskoka, where architectural design is very important. The final design details, including building materials, colors, and architectural features, will be determined through a forthcoming site plan control process. In order to facilitate this development, a minor zoning bylaw amendment is required. This slide illustrates the proposed zoning bylaw amendment schedule and details. It is proposed that the entirety of this site be rezoned to the RS6-1 zone with updated provisions, and the RS6-7 zone be eliminated. This amendment serves to remove the 18-unit building and consolidate all 72 residential units into 2 buildings rather than 3. The zoning amendment will also facilitate minor revisions to the building in order to accommodate the additional 18 units without any increase in height from the approved 3 stories. This slide illustrates the zoning categories that are affected by this amendment while comparing the current in effect zoning to the proposed new zoning. As shown here, the existing zoning permits 54 plus 18 residential units for a total of 72. The proposed new zoning would permit the same maximum number of 72 units. The existing zoning permits a 6 meter setback to the front yard on the western side. The proposed new zoning would increase this minimum setback to 55 meters by eliminating the third building. The existing zoning permits a 6 meter setback to the rear yard on the eastern side. The proposed new zoning would increase this minimum setback to 15 meters. And finally, the existing zoning permits a 0 meter setback to the exterior side yard or southern side. The proposed new zoning would increase this minimum to 65 meters, all by way of eliminating the third building. The resulting built form will provide far greater setbacks for features such as stormwater management, landscaping, and naturalized areas when compared to what is permitted today. In conclusion, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment represents a minor revision to the site zoning as it exists today and is supported by all levels of planning policy. The revision will facilitate a long-awaited multi-residential development within Krumer, with architectural design further being detailed throughout the site plan control process. The application seeks to provide an appropriate, compact, and functional development comprised of 72 residential condominium units within 2 3-story buildings. This development will provide a much-needed new built form within this area of Krumer, contributing to a mixture of housing options for residents wishing to downsize but stay within their community. I appreciate your time tonight. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sellers. But please stand by because there may be some questions for you. So if you stand by. Now, is Mr. Gray still going to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Well, hi, Mr. Deputy Mayor and Mayor. I'm here to answer any questions. I don't have a formal presentation, so I'm here if a question comes up that I can assist in answering.
Okay, that's great. So this time I would ask if there's anybody from the public who wants to ask some question. I understand Pierre is the only public applicant who's interested in has some questions. So Pierre, you may go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Councilman, Deputy Mayor. Entranceway. Can you not put an entranceway off of Edward Street? Is that a possibility? That's one. Oh, yes, Rosalind.
I didn't know what the format, how you'd like us to address the questions. I will try to write down the questions and then answer them at once. Is that fair, or how would you like to do this?
Sure. This is new to me. I'm sorry for letting me be here. I am the one that's being most impacted by this construction. I have nothing against it. It is progress. More or less, I don't want to devalue my property, like a sidewalk close to my house, hedges going, fences going up. I see Mr. Deputy Mayor is not really interested in what I'm saying.
Okay, Mr. Gray, do you have, how many questions do you have, if I may ask?
Myself?
Yes, Ms. Pierre, how many questions do you have?
The sidewalk, the hedge, and the fence. And
Okay,
that's it.
so why don't you ask those three questions? Rosalind, we'll let him ask those three questions, and then Mr. Sellers or Mr. Gray can respond. And then if there's additional questions, we'll go ahead with that. Okay?
Okay, well, first of all,
So Pierre, you're up. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. First of all, is my cedar hedge going to stay intact? Second question is the privacy fence. Is it going to be the 9 feet high or 8 feet high? Third and foremost, is most important, is the sidewalk in front of my house. I don't want to lose any parking space. I'd like to keep it the way it is. That's the most important thing. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we can, so Mr. Sellers or Mr. Gray, would one of you like to respond to those questions?
Certainly, yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Pierre. The cedar, and so we're in the process of finalizing a tree inventory and preservation plan. The cedar hedge, I've looked at it on an aerial, appears to be right on your property line. So I don't think we would have any intention to remove that. Certainly it provides some privacy and a buffer between your property and this development. So I don't see any intention to remove that privacy hedge. In terms of the fence, the fence details will be ironed out through the site plan control process. We will certainly provide whatever the municipality requires. Privacy fences are typically 6 feet in height, although we will provide whatever the municipality would like to see. The sidewalk in front of the house, I'll have to completely defer to the municipality. I know that Mary Street is a higher order road than Edward Street East. And I believe that there are plans to bring that sidewalk through to County Road 9. But again, this is sort of outside of the realm of our duties as the developer. I'll defer to township staff on that. And then in terms of the entrances, we have just maintained the entrances exactly where they were proposed and determined the best location should be through the previous approvals. There already is an entrance to Edward Street East, although it's for emergency vehicles only, with the main entrance coming off of Mary Street.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. Rosalind, or could somebody else from staff answer the question about sidewalks? Yeah, go ahead, Rosalind.
Hi, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I see Dan is also joined us. I think the one thing that we can talk about is, the sidewalk obviously is something we would require on the subject lands. I know it is shown as on the drawing that has been handed out. It doesn't mean that township would be moving forward right away on erecting that sidewalk, but I might defer to Dan on that too, because it is more of a public works initiative.
Yes, Dan, maybe you can add a little more to that, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Perhaps I can. The diagram or the aerial photo that was shown, we're trying to make as many connections as possible with features. So there's existing sidewalks south of here. of this location on Mary Street. There will be sidewalk north of here through the Alliance development. So, you know, the opportunities that we can get, ideally they would be urbanized areas. However, you know, council has brought this to the forefront with sidewalk connection, not only in Krumer, but in other areas. So this would have to be a decision of council in the future that if we have the funds available to make connections through areas that are not under development control, that we would make certain connections in the future. Staff did have a look at the plan earlier today, and I might note to council that you know, that the approximate distance from the front of the house with Pierre's house and to the what would be, you know, the proposed sidewalk is about 8 meters. So it's not, it's a significant distance, and you know, I would suggest that there would be sufficient room to have a sidewalk there while the gentleman could continue to park on his property. But that would have to be a decision. Again, it would be funds available to create future new sidewalk connections in the municipality, similar to what we're dealing with in other locations.
Excuse me, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's the mayor.
Yes, Your Worship.
Would we be
Please.
able to ask Mr. Sellers to switch his page to the overall view, the aerial view of the location? And that way it might help what Dan was making the presentation. That you know, something like that. That just helps. Either that or stop sharing anyway. All good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, so Pierre, you've had an answer to those 3 questions. Do you have any other questions, sir?
No, not at this time. I want to thank everybody for letting me be part of this meeting. To be kept in the loop is really, really nice of you. And like you said, Mr. Deputy Mayor, until further, and Dan, until further, I guess, procedures arise is when I can ask other questions. So with that, I'd like to thank Rosalind, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Sellers for your presentation, and I bid you all a farewell. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. I just received a notice from Mara that there's another person from the public wanting to participate. Is that correct, Mara?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't think it was from me. Was it a message from Carla, maybe?
Oh, maybe it was a message.
Sorry,
Carla. I thought it was me. Carla, could you advise?
Once I
Kayla.
find my mute button, it's Kayla.
Yeah.
It's okay. Happens all the time. I was here first, though. Yes, I've just noticed that Joe Sazo, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, has been in the wait room. I've promoted him to panelist as he's here with MDM Developments as well. So I just wanted to make sure he had an opportunity to speak if that's the case.
No,
Okay, so he's with the development. So did you want to speak, sir, and add anything to what's already been added?
No, I'm just here for support for the development with the developer.
That's great. Thank you. So I'm now going to go to council. And is there anybody on council that has a question? And perhaps we could close the screen sharing because I can't see everybody at once. So we could close the screen sharing. That's perfect. Now we can see everybody. Is there any council members that have a question? Going once. Yes, Councillor Lamers and then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. As Mr. Pierre says, like, can there be an access brought in off Edward Street to the middle of the parking lot?
I guess Rosalind, you can answer that.
Yeah, I'll just follow up. It's so Councillor Lamer, thank you, Barry, or thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's this, so as I alluded to, and I think Cameron alluded to, this has been an ongoing application, and there was actually an OMB hearing. As part of that OMB hearing, the entrance was approved on Mary Street with an emergency entrance on Edward only. So there will not be any active transportation from this site onto Edward Street. It will all go through Mary.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson, you had a question. Tom, Councillor Patterson, you had a question?
Unmuting. No, just a comment. I just wanted to thank MDM and Doug Gray in particular for coming to the site and talking to the residents that were distributed with the planning notice. I think it aided the immediately affected neighbors in getting some direct time with MDM and Doug. And I thought it was beneficial, and I appreciate the interest in the developer doing that this early in the process. So.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any questions, any further questions from council members? Going once, going twice. Okay, this concludes the public meeting with respect to tonight's file. We thank all who provided written comments and for their interest in this matter. All input received with regard to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future date. That means not tonight. We won't be deciding this tonight. We will now proceed to turn the chair back to His Worship, the Mayor.
Very good. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Glad that we're able to get that public meeting in. And I apologize to members of the NVCA who have been waiting to make their presentation. So council, at this time, we are at item number 5.2 on our agenda. And I look to our clerk and or Kayla to bring Mr. Doug Havner, who is the CAO of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. If he is here. Oh, Marion McLeod just appeared. Hello, Councillor McLeod. Nice to see you. I know you are the co-chair or deputy chair, vice chair of NVCA.
Vice chair, yes.
Welcome. Nice to see you. And Mr. Havner, I believe, is with us as well. There he is. Very good. Well, welcome, and NVCA staff members, I presume. Mr. Havner, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, sure, Your Worship. May I invite Cheryl to the meeting, please? She's been waiting since 5:30 as well, our Director of Corporate Finance.
Okay. Maybe our Kayla can help you bring that person in board.
I'm sorry, I don't see that person in the attendees section.
I'm here.
Oh,
Okay,
Cheryl, there you are. Okay. This Zoom thing is getting more and more interesting all the time, isn't it, folks? I tell you. There you go. All right, Mr. Havner, it's nice to have you here joining us. You want to bring us a little update on your business plan and your budget. So why don't we get right to it, since it's coming up here on a late hour as our council meeting moves ahead.
Okay,
go ahead, Doug.
Through the mayor, if I may. Pam, you're going to forward the slides as I call you then?
Yes, I will. If you just want to cue me, I will go through them
Can you
for
move to
you.
slide 2 right away, please? Just want to give you a little background here on the Nottawasaga. Our watershed is 3,700 square kilometers in size, and as you're all aware, it includes 18 municipalities, of which Clearview is one. We cover 554 square kilometers of your township area as conservation lands. In that, the Nottawasaga Bluffs and New Lowell. Our vice chair was out at the Nottawasaga Bluffs this weekend. We had over 100 cars out there and lots of people on the site. Our board members are appointed for 4-year terms, and we're happy to have Tom Patterson as our board member. And next slide, please. I want to touch a little bit on our vision. Our goal is to be a sustainable watershed that is resilient to the effects of climate change, urban growth, and other stressors, and it provides for safe, healthy, and prosperous people and communities. And our mission, working together to deliver innovative, integrated watershed management that is responsive to the environmental, economic, and social sustainability of the Nottawasaga Valley watershed. Next slide, please. With this year, when we sent out our budget presentation, we included a budget companion. If you haven't had an opportunity to go through it, I really encourage you to go through it. It provides you with really good detail, financial details, and details about our working groups and what we're doing in the Nottawasaga Valley. Next slide, please. Want to talk a little bit about accomplishments. Here I'll start with Watershed Science. Watershed Science, we completed a watershed monitoring strategy that we want to bring forward. Through that, we accomplished a broad desktop assessment, evaluated wetlands and unevaluated wetlands on our watershed and sub-watershed basis. It's vitally important that we do this because it's important that you have data to track how things come out. You need hard set data sets to accomplish meaningful targets and whether you met those targets. And I think that's vitally important. Monitoring provides that for us. We finalized a report document on the NVCA wetland mapping history and included a protocol for future updates. It's a monitoring group that puts together and works very hard with our teams to do our watershed report cards in a 4-year cycle as well. We also completed a natural heritage discussion paper outlining future directions of programs for this component. We're really looking at ways to be revenue generating in this. So if we can partner to help some of our municipal partners with collecting data, we're prepared to do that. Next slide, please. Education this year was really ravaged through COVID. We really took the high road here and tried to honor the public health unit's procedures and views on public safety and public health. So we haven't been offering a program. We are just now launching with Simcoe County Schools a on-site visit to schools with our educational staff, and we're looking at launching a virtual program as well. So we'll see significant losses financially there. We had to lay off the entire complement of staff, part-time staff, and 1 full-time staff person this year as well. Typically, we see as many as 15,000 students coming to our Tiffin area each year. So it's been quite a change for us this year. Next slide, please. Stewardship and restoration services. I think it's anyone that lives in the Nottawasaga Valley understands how important the streams and waterways are. We're primarily a cold water river system bordered by the escarpments and the Oro Highlands and the Oak Ridges moraines. We've got those streams coming down from high elevation and feeding the Nottawasaga River. Really proud to say that it's a really dynamic Chinook salmon fishery, and the salmon are attract at least 65 kilometers upriver from Georgian Bay. The Nottawasaga is what unifies our entire group. It runs through virtually all of our 18 municipalities, have feeder streams that run into the Nottawasaga as it runs from the Oak Ridges Moraine to Georgian Bay. This year we did quite a bit of work. We've done some special projects. You may have seen invitations to come out and attend some of these project sites this year. We just recently visited the New Tech area where we did a wetland enhancement of 1.5 hectares, as well as working on improving a ice dam that was in potential damaging roadways and providing infrastructure damage to the area. And now we've opened that up, so we've got a great cool water stream, water ripping through that culvert, fish being able to transport back and forth. We're blessed in our watershed to have Fred Dobbs with us. He's been with the Nottawasaga Valley for well over 25 years, intimately knows the watershed and how it works. In the pictures here, you can see some of the groups that we work with. We're really fortunate to work with the Steelheaders Association. They're a nonprofit organization that really works to support fishing in the Nottawasaga Valley and salmon fishing on the southern Georgian Bay. Next slide, please. Forestry is another big part of our program. This year we planted 107,000 plus trees. That's down from about 250,000 trees of last year. We planted on 27 properties across the watershed, and we created 134 acres of new forest. We received financial contributions outside of levy funding from the province, municipal governments, Forests Ontario, corporations, private landowners, totaling over $250,000. And we managed over 1,000 acres of forest, and we work with 40 landowners to develop managed forestment plans. We don't actively go out and seek people to participate in our forest management plans. We encourage people, if they wish to take advantage of that provincially run program, we're the instrument for that to happen. Next slide, please. Flood management. You know, in the last year, the flood funding was reduced by 50%. So we've been dropped down to $97,000 in funding for our flood program. Flooding is important. The takeaway from this picture, and Marion and Cheryl have heard me say this before at other presentations, this is what we want to see in a flood situation. We don't want to see infrastructure compromised. We don't want to see houses and structures in jeopardy. We want to see the river action doing what it can. It's flowing over its riparian banks and doing what it does, staying out of the way of costly infrastructure. And that's what we need to do, and we need to partner to do that in the future as well. We also monitor ice conditions throughout our entire watershed. We have gauges on the Nottawasaga and on some of the other streamways where we can manage to note the flows and the turbidity of the water in those areas. They'll require ongoing maintenance and improvements, and we have some capital projects in line for some of those gadgets later on. We further developed the criteria for the Georgian Bay shoreline flood warning statement. And we also worked with the shoreline and riverine systems to develop a strategy for the incrementally high water. The Great Lakes watersheds have seen the highest recorded heights in their recorded history. And Collingwood and Wasaga have definitely seen that situation affect their shorelines. Next slide, please. Planning and development. We've done some things to streamline our engineering and technical review applications. I'm really happy to report that the calc that was used from the province of Ontario to monitor how we are doing in responding to permitting timelines, they give us 90 days to respond. And in last year, the first quarter of this year, we were responding in 90 days at a target of about 90.1%. And we were targeting 60 days, which Conservation Ontario in the end of 2019 suggested we could try to improve that 90-day period to 60 days. We were reporting at 85% efficiency. For the second and third quarter, with our staff working from home and the challenges of COVID, and actually seeing more touches, more permits, more general inquiries, a substantial increase in non-compliance, we're now targeting 98% efficiency on the 90-day turnaround and 95% efficiency on the 60-day turnaround. So we're trying to take the red tape out of the game if we can and get our work done faster. A lot of people have the conception that, the concept that the NVCA sets all the rules and it's the NVCA is doing this and they're the encumbrance. I just want to really, let you know that we act under the Conservation Authorities Act. We react to the Planning Act. We deal with the Niagara Escarpment Planning and Development Acts. We deal with the Aggregate Resource Act, the Green Energy Act, the Drainage Act, and the Environmental Assessment Act. We're a commenting agency providing comments that can helpfully work with your planning teams to, as I mentioned earlier, keep development where it's safe and keep infrastructure where it can be there for years so that the value that's expressed can really increase in value for generations to come. We work with programs where we get funding from the federal government. Last year, we completed 2 national disaster mitigation programs, one in the Wasaga Beach Basin and one down in the Agilitas area in the southern part of our watershed. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Our 2021 focus we're looking forward. We'll have the implications of Bill 108, and recently the Bill 229 that was included in the budget bill that's being under review right now. There's going to have some definite impacts on legislation and regulation. If you look at the ERB right now that's posted by the province, they've listed some of the legislations. This afternoon, I was participating with the Ministry of Environmental Conservation and Parks in a 2-hour meeting. We were going through the changes and giving them feedback on how conservation authorities acted on that. We met with 14 staffers from MECP and their new director. Something that's changed now is there is a portfolio within the MECP that will deal with conservation authorities and source water protection. So there'll be somebody that can keep all this intellectual property that we've generated through this tremendous stakeholder engagement process in 2019 and 2020. So hopefully the government has a good collection of intellectual property that they can use to help speak to both municipal partners and conservation authorities as we move forward. We're going to continue to implement an integrated watershed management strategy. And with that, we completed that work in 2019. We looked at a 20-year horizon. Since that time, we've presented and had approved a strategic plan in a 5-year window. And with that, it's made many recommendations to our partners. We had over 300 stakeholders participate in our integrated watershed strategy planning. And we're very happy that we were able to move that through. We're going to continue working diligently to improve client services. I spoke to you a little bit about some of the steps that we've taken and some of the target data that we're hitting right now. So I think it's important that we continue to work and improve the partnership. And we have to do that through increased and better communication. We've just recently worked through a tough situation in Clearview. We spent time with Mara's staff and Steve, your CAO, coming up with an agreement on how to proceed forward on your developmental grounds. And we continue to work with you as best we can. Next slide, please. COVID-19 is something that's really caused some challenges for us. We're probably going to see a loss anywhere from $100,000 to $105,000 in arrears at the end of the fiscal year this year. We're not going to be coming back to our municipal partners hat in hand and looking for catch-up funds. We've worked really diligently over the last several years to develop a surplus that we can have as a reserve to deal with the days when the rain just keeps coming. So we'll be using funds from our reserve to meet that shortfall this year. So I've already mentioned we are going to see $97,000 reduction in the hard costs for funding. And we've already taken steps to really streamline that program as best we can and reduce any surplus costs that may be in the program or might have been in the program. We're going to see costs to benefits. Our insurance company has informed us that in 2021, we're going to see insurance premiums rise. As well, we'll probably see some property tax increases. Next slide, please. How we're addressing these pressures. Staff's worked really hard with a target that was set for us by our board of 1.5% increase. We actually came in at less than that. We compared 3-year standards. We eliminated full-time positions through attrition and retirement. We looked at all of our expenditures to see where savings should be found. And we looked really hard to try to increase potential revenues. Next slide, please. So we had an approved budget of $124,900 in operating levy for yourself in Clearview. Proposed increase is $470 to that. The total operating budget of $125,440. Next slide, please. So how does that $125,440 work? We take that and we incorporate it with our other municipalities. We gather provincial funding, federal funding, grants, and the NDCA portion. And we pull that together and we come up with a budget that's just on the top side of $5 million. Next slide, please. So with this slide, I just want to let you know that in 2021, we don't foresee any increase per resident costs. And if you look at this and you refer to the budget document that I talked about earlier, you can see some of the costs per capita It's $12.62 of levy costs per resident. And if you have any questions on that, Cheryl can drum that out for you if you have any questions later. There's a breakout on the program names and the cost per resident there. Next slide, please. Clearview assessment contribution this year is going to be $6,872. That's up from $6,420 in 2020. That's for your capital works. The scheduled capital projects are dike safety review on the Pretty River, new truck replacement parts, as I said earlier, for some of that flood monitoring equipment to extend the life and allow us to really keep everybody safe as best we can. We're going to be doing some replacement end-of-life equipment works, some computer and server upgrades and network hardware, upgrades to our water system at Tiffin, and a replacement of AED, as well as some signage and replacement of folding chairs for our school events when we get back on the property again. Next slide, please. So combined together, our proposed levy for the year is $132,312 budget dollars. That's a difference of $922 from 2020 to 2021. So not a big increase there. Next slide, please. Do you have any questions, guys and gals? I'd be happy to answer them. It's been a long evening for you. I tried to go through that as quickly as I could for you. So if you have any questions. And Cheryl here is our financial director. She can answer some more detail if you need it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hedger. It's great presentation, and glad to see that your budget is being presented to us with a very small increase. So thank you for that. And you're also to be congratulated. I'm sure your finance department is scratching their head about how they could do all this amazing work with only $5 million in the budget. So congratulations on that. Members of council, do you have any questions for Mr. Havner or the other members of the delegation here tonight? And by the way, I don't see everybody for some reason. Let me just pop that out. There we go. Now I do. Okay, I've got some cards. I see Deputy Mayor Burton. Please go right ahead. You're muted there, Barry.
Pushing the button, it didn't want to unmute for some reason. Sorry about that, Your Worship.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hefner, for your presentation. The one area I wanted to make a comment and actually ask a question is I appreciate the tree planting that you do. You stated you planted 107,850 trees. While I support that tree planting for riverbanks and things like that for soil protection and bank protection, I'm concerned about the number of trees that are being planted on prime agricultural land. And I know that, your policy is if somebody wants it, that you sponsor it. And I've seen these sponsorship signs where several acres of 5 acres, 10 acres of prime agricultural land, you have supported planting trees in it while the Ministry of Agriculture is protecting agricultural land. And you're not allowed to take severances off agricultural land. Will the NVCA make a policy and create a policy to state that they will not plant trees on prime agricultural land?
Through the mayor, if I may. As I said earlier, we're a pass-through agency, Deputy Mayor Burton. The organization doesn't go out and solicit those aspects. We try not to plant on class scheduled 1. We talk to proponents about it. It's proponent driven. We can't prevent someone from wanting to participate in a program that the province of Ontario operates willingly with the residents of Ontario. I really don't know any other way to deal with that question.
If I may, Your Worship, it just seems counterproductive that we're trying to protect prime agricultural land and then we're having people planting forests. And like I said, while I support your tree planting program and bank protection and stuff like that, I think the NVCA needs to take a position as to protecting agricultural land as well. And so so a question I asked, could you prepare a report for me advising me how much agricultural land was actually planted with trees, how many acres? I don't ask for that today, but Could you send me that information in the future to give me an idea of the 27 acres that were planted, how much of it was actually agricultural land?
Sure. And what land class of agricultural land are you interested in?
Well, I would say in the top 3.
Thank you. Sure, we can do that. No, not a problem. I have that data available. Be happy to do that for you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you for the cooperation there, Mr. CAO. Mr. Lamers is next. I saw Councillor Lamers' card. Also looking for anybody else with any other cards. All right. Mr. Lamers, you're up next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. To Dan or Doug. Sorry. Years ago, I used to canoe from Alliston to Wasaga Beach. It's a beautiful canoe trip down through there. And lately, everybody's been complaining that there's too much portaging to go through there. Do you guys have any plans for deadfall and beavers to get cleaned up out of there?
Well,
it's
to the mayor, if I may.
Farmers Fields between Alliston and the beach.
Thank you, Mayor, if I may. Under the Municipal Act, ice dams and tree falls within the river itself are on the call of the municipality to deal with those extractions. That's the way the province sets it up. Our work begins on the riparian shoreline. If the trees are still actively growing in the ground and there's going to be damage done to the riparian bank, there'd be a permit required, and our involvement or intervention in how those trees would be done so that they wouldn't be eroding the shoreline bank into the riverine system. Other than that, we can certainly monitor the situation, but we're not budgeted or deemed responsible to remove ice flows or tree snags from the river itself. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Lamers.
Mr. Lamers?
Yeah, thank you. But
welcome.
Every year it's getting worse and worse and worse between beaver dams and deadfall in the rivers that are jamming it up, and more farmers' fields are getting flooded every spring and every summer when we have heavy rainfalls. Something needs to be done somewhere.
Mr. Hunter? Okay. All right. Anybody else with any other questions? All right. I don't see any others. Mr. Havner, and to your staff and is it the co-chair, Marion? Co-chair, vice chair, deputy chair?
It's vice chair.
Vice chair. Vice chair. Okay.
And since I'm in Clearview, let me say how nice it was to go for a walk in Clearview on the Conservation Authority's Nottawasaga Bluffs area on Saturday afternoon. It was fantastic to be home.
It is a beautiful, beautiful walk for sure. That's great. I'm interested, Mr. Havner, in just having a brief discussion. I know we do have a long meeting, but I got to ask you about your comments about red tape, the process. And you know, last time we met, I apologize. We did have a long meeting, and I tell you, I'm just looking to hear what work you've done or what processes you've brought into place to help streamline some of the application processes for residents and those that are looking for comments from the NVCA.
Certainly, through your worship, if I may. COVID has really provided us an opportunity to really interact as teams. So this working from home has allowed us to bring more people into action, and we now have weekly meetings. Our engineering staff goes over and they identify, you know, what are the problem children in response times? Where are we on response times? There's a lot more attention paid to this now because it's front and it's technical. We're able to do that. Same with our planning situation and our regulations. You know, it's amazing. We've seen an increase in non-compliance, and we've seen an increase in general inquiries. We've seen an increase in permitting, but we've gotten the permits out even faster as a result of this because we're working in a much, I think, more efficient fashion. In my former life, I came from the municipality of Edmonton as the Parks and Roads director. and worked in a full-on work from home satellite work situation with workers. 75% of my staff was not working in offices. They were working out and about. So when I came here, I've really encouraged staff and worked with Cheryl in our HR team to try to come up with ways. We had several staff that were working out of the office prior to COVID, and we're just simply proving that it's a really good method. And we've got the data to support that. So the things that we're doing to try to improve red tape and reduce red tape, 90 days to 60 days on the turnaround of a permit is a month in the process. And we're really proud that we're hitting those targets at 95 and 98%. That's something we're really happy to comment on. And we got out ahead of that. I got ahead of the government. We did that in 2019. We set those targets for 2020. We're going to continue to do that. I think as the process continues, through really good, wholesome communication and open lines of communication, we're going to develop some great agreements and some great memorandums of understanding that may be more inclusive. We manage this system on this integrated process. So if we look at planning, well, we've got to look at monitoring. We have to look at stewardship. We have to look at engineering. We have to look at the planning process and weigh it all against the acts. And I think what you're reading on the ERB right now, there's some suggested changes. Just like when this happened in 2019 and they made the initial changes, now they've sort of magnified that situation. They've explained them a little better. They've got to still bring the regulations towards it, but I just want you to be prepared. They're targeting that even through this process, it won't really become live until 2022. So, there's some processes out there. I talked about intellectual property being collected by MECP and the MNRNF. Years ago, conservation authorities had a portfolio the government was really a hold of. They understood what conservation authorities did, and they worked cohesively together to make that happen. Over time, from the time of the Harper government in the early 90s, when funding was reduced dramatically, and that funding was, basically, as Mark Aiken likes to say, stealthily downloaded to municipalities. 49% of our funding comes from municipalities now. People were pushed to do things differently. And I just think that we've come up with a lot of ways to do that. So I hope that's addressed some of your concerns, Mayor.
Well, thank you for that. And I want you to know, I have not had the complaints to the public or from the public directly to me about public files that I had last year at this time. But I have had the frustration level of some of our staff in getting the work done on lands that we own. But I'm happy to see that tonight, later on in our council meeting, we do have the agreement that you mentioned briefly in your presentation about our industrial lands that we will be presenting here to council, and a bylaw to pass to move that forward. So I am happy to say that we are getting some success here and we are working together. And I acknowledge that you recognize the work of our CIO, Steve Sage, and Mara, who have been working diligently trying to, bring more jobs to this community, because our industrial properties need to be developed and bring opportunity here. We are indeed a growing community. We have lots of development happening as far as residential development, but it's most exciting for me as the mayor and this council to see that we're bringing job opportunities into this community as well. And so it was pretty frustrating at times to know that we were waiting for information from the NVCA. So very glad to see that it's finally come forward. And I want to acknowledge and thank you for stepping up and working with our CAO to make that happen. So thank you, sir. Any other comments from anybody? It's great to have you back here, and thank you for your presentation about your.
Through the mayor, if I may, just
yes,
I might offer our chair's apologies. He had to slip out. Keith wanted to be here and just sort of bring some greetings, but he had to leave. He sent a message to our board member Tom Patterson earlier, praising me that, and we're happy to wait and participate in your meeting when it works best for you. That's what good partners do.
Thank you very much indeed. And Marion, Councillor McLeod, I'm really happy that we have a neighbor like you who knows our community, and I'm glad that you're helping our community by serving on this board, and that helps us. So thank you for that, bringing your insights about our community forward. And it's also nice about your chair, by the way, also being a neighbor, because he's in Essen Township right there. So we're right here in the middle here in Clearview. So happy to do that. All right, you guys, thank you for joining us. No further questions from members of our council. So I'll let you guys go. We got business to do on our agenda. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Good luck. All right, members of council, we're going to move ahead with our agenda. Let's see. Yeah, we're going on to 8 o'clock. My goodness, Councillor McKechnie, you keep that motion handy, okay? All right, council. Item number 7 is the approval of the council minutes. Recommendation be it resolved by council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the October 26, 2020 council meeting as presented. I have a mover and seconder on the motion, please. Where am I? Walker and Deputy Mayor. Councillor Walker, Deputy Mayor, any questions? All right, council, seeing none, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. All right, item number 8, business arising from the minutes. Looking to see, anybody got any business arising? Not seeing any. Okay, item number 9, communications from the mayor. We're going to talk about 9.1. We have 2 items to bring forward that are actually both bylaws. So they're going to come forward in the bylaw section of our meeting, which is a few pages in here. One of them, as I just mentioned a moment ago, had to do with the NVCA, and the other one is about an appointment to the Duntroon Hall Board. So those 2 bylaws. Council, they are not appearing on your agendas, or because they are part of this. The clerk has forwarded an email to all members of council that includes the actual wording, but I'll just read it out when we get to it. So those are the 2 items that I have for item 9.1. Council, there are several requests on the communications from the mayor, 9.2, 9.4. So I'm just going to ask, is there anything that you would like to bring up, council, in regards to the Devil's Glen Ski Club request in support of the Mount St. Louis Moonstone proposal, as well as the City of St. Catharines development approval requirements for landfills? Does anybody? Okay, I see Councillor McKechnie's got a yellow card. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'd like to ask staff to send a letter to the Honourable Lisa MacLeod supporting Mount St. Louis Moonstone's request to ensure Ontario's Stage 2 and Stage 3 regulations permit the sports of skiing and snowboarding during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'd like copies sent to Devil's Glen, Mount St. Louis Moonstone, the Premier Doug Ford, and the Chief Medical Officer of Health, David Williams.
Can I ask a friendly amendment on that, Doug? And that would be that we include Blue Mountain Resorts in that, being that they're a pretty major employer in this area.
Yeah, that sounds good. When you mention that, maybe we could send it out to the others as well, like Osler, I guess the private ski clubs, maybe Alpine.
Certainly Osler, that's right on the edge of our community, and they have property in our community. So
sure, Mansfield, maybe, I guess. I don't, sure. Okay. I'm open to that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I saw Leishman first, and then I saw Patterson. So go, Connie, go.
Thank you. I'd like you to include Snow Valley in that, please.
Excellent point.
And while we're at it, why don't we include Nordic Highlands as well? They're a good Duntroon business. So, and we're Nordic skiing.
Councillor Patterson, I believe, is next. Anybody else? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I noted that they're working with the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. Have they come to a conclusion? I mean, is this request going with the approval of the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit? Is this what I'm saying? Could we put a question in just before we send the letter, just to feel comfortable that we're in?
I think the content of the letter asks for the regulations to be associated with the workings of a ski resort during COVID. So apparently my internet's failing. You guys still hear me?
Yep.
All right, good.
I'm commenting on the letter. They are obviously doing the right thing. They're working diligently with the local health unit And I'm
Right.
just saying, do we have an update on it?
Good enough. Let's go to the clerk. Go ahead, Pam.
I was just going to comment that I think what this letter is to accomplish is just to support the local ski hills in coming up with a solution. But certainly, Councillor Patterson, we can reach out to Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit and see if there's been any update on this matter and circulate that back to members of council.
Thank you.
For information. Good. All right. Anything further? So Mr. McKechnie has made that motion. It's been kind of friendly amended here, and I'm sure that the clerk's department have copied it all. I'll look for a seconder. Is there a seconder? Councillor Broderick. Thank you. Council, any further discussion on that? We'll call the motion. All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Let's just do 9.3 MVCA highlights. Any questions or comments about that? No? Good review there to get the CAO here tonight, so it was good. So City of St. Catharines development regarding landfill. Any comments on that one? Anybody got any comments on that request? Okay, so I'm not seeing any. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Well, the only thing that struck me about this is quite the possible implications on our community. Where, you know, can we get a little bit more information on this? I looked for the AMO position on Bill 187. Sorry, 197. I couldn't really find anything substantial, but the part that an adjoining municipality within a certain distance from the boundary can veto a proposal, an environmental proposal in an adjoining municipality has some implications I'd like to understand a little bit better.
You know, on the surface, go ahead, Barry. I got comments, but I'm listening to you guys.
Yeah, I agree with what Councillor Patterson just said. It had consensus. I believe it was 3.5 kilometers was the distance. I could be wrong on that, but it was a short distance and could be vetoed, which I thought was wrong. Fortunately for us at Simcoe County, our garbage and dumps are all run by the county, so it's not run by the individual township. So our municipality looking after it, which means it would have to be another county that would have to oppose anything that we're doing. I don't think there's any of our dumps that are anywhere near within that type of distance, but yeah. I do have a concern about it.
Certainly, it's a concern. Anybody else have any comments? All right. I was supportive of adding this to the agenda because I wanted this information both in your hands and in the hands of the public. And I think that it's important that we continue to monitor this situation. I would be very much supportive of making this part of our information package that in a motion to receive that is part of the communications from the mayor. I think that that's where it's appropriate to be. But I think that as Councillor Patterson points out, we've got to get some more information on this before we can make a position on it. And to the deputy mayor's point, we, of course, work with our county of Simcoe that has a long-term and very long-term plans for waste management. And right now, that's the direction that the province is allowing us to do that. So, Tom, you had another comment?
Well, I was simply going to say that if staff feels they need a direction from council to bring back a report, I'd be happy to do that. Or is it just a general understanding, as you said, that we monitor it and have information brought back to us when it's appropriate?
Well, I would think that we need to monitor it as it is. I think that the abilities of our staff, as well as the county staff, keeping us all up to date on it. It's an interesting idea that came from St. Catharines. It's just that, to the deputy mayor's point, we as a municipality of Clearview do not establish landfill sites. They're established by the county of Simcoe. So it's outside of our real responsibility at this time, although we need to be very much aware of it. So I think getting it in here for information is a positive step. And
well, I do point out that in Bill 198, there's more implications to environmental assessment process than just the landfill. So I'd just like to know what the impact of the veto process, which is something new, is on the total package.
Well, it's actually not new to us in Clearview because there is a little bit of objection availability in the Planning Act to allow the town of Collingwood to object right on our borders, like along Poplar Side Road and that type of thing. So it's not unheard of that neighboring municipalities will comment or have veto or, you know. So anyway, okay, that's where I think we've hammered this out as best we can right now. I would suggest that if there's members of council that want to bring this up, to do some research and bring it up with staff, and maybe we can get to a point where we can have a more fulsome, informed discussion on this topic. Comfortable? All right, so council, that means that we've got a motion on number 9.2. So then I'll just go to the recommendation that council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the communications from the mayor for information. Mover and seconder, please. Broderick and Deneen. Broderick, Deneen. Thank you very much for that. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. All right, council, we have our item number 10, county reports for information. Mr. Deputy Mayor, Deputy Warden, and if council hasn't heard or the public haven't heard, the Deputy Warden is running for re-election to the Deputy Warden, and I wish him all the best and keep up the great work there you're doing, Barry. Got anything to add for county reports tonight?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, I do have some things to talk about tonight. So I thought I'd start off with letting everybody know that county staff presented county council on Tuesday, or last 2 weeks ago, Tuesday. Actually, it was Thursday. I'm sorry, getting confused with my dates. All departments presented their proposed budgets for all their areas, and they did it with a 0% increase across the board, which was interesting. But on Tuesday, tomorrow, County Council will review the budget and make recommendations, which could or may change that, the effect of the 0% increase. So stand by, we'll see what happens at County Council tomorrow. Things that I thought I would let you know, they were able to keep a 0% increase, which was the direction of County Council, because the levy grew by $8.5 million. That means the assessments and new buildings and that. The total budget, $572 million for the county. They said the levy grew by 8.5 million. The internal debt is 198 million, and the external debt is 33.6 million. And the cost of the COVID has cost us 13.5 million. And expenses. So you can sort of see, and all that information is readily available. I just wanted to briefly talk about COVID and the problem that we're having with the homeless, trying to keep them safe in our communities. And as you know, we're peaking again. So there's a big effort to keep the homeless housed somewhere. So using hotels and motels, and we've done a couple of conversion units, which is helping some of the homeless get into a more permanent type of facility, but they're able to help 220 persons, homeless persons, stay in a safe environment and away from possible contact. And then the use of Georgia College, the student housing that is not being used has been used by the county to house 60 some odd homeless individuals, and again, trying to help keep the COVID under control. The situation in Beaton is improving. I reported last week how that was, and we just keep our fingers crossed that everything works out all right there, that we have no more future infections. And that's about it for county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any members of council, any questions for the mayor or the deputy mayor or myself, if you have anything about the county? All right. Well, Barry, great job. It was a really good budget meeting. Hats off to the staff. They do a great job at the county of preparing councilors for the budget process, and I really did appreciate that. The details that go into their reports are very good, so I appreciate that very much. look forward to our meeting tomorrow. Council, we're now going to move on to item 11, which is our ward reports. So we'll go around the room with some ward reports. I will conclude it. So I'll start with Councillor Walker, Robert Walker. How are you doing there, Robert?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of meetings. One was November the 3rd was the Youth Committee. And basically a report from Courtney. The Youth Center was scheduled to open on the 28th of September, but was delayed due to partitions, etc., being installed. Was open on the 14th of October. The 50 activity kits that they had in the summer were a huge success, so they decided to try the activity kits in the fall and their monthly kits, and those 50 kits are already gone. Geographically, they're throughout all of Clearview. The age is roughly 12 to 17 years of age are the ones receiving those activity kits. So we're keeping in touch with the youth, trying to keep them occupied, and the parents are greatly appreciative of the fact that our youth director, they are running around delivering these to the homes for the youth so that they can have something to do every month. Right now, with the youth center being open, there's only a maximum of 8 allowed in there with 2 staff. We have had to do some changing of some of the equipment in there due to health regulations and cleanliness. Also, that the kitchen has been certified as a fully commercial kitchen, and that they are serving some type of a meal every night that they're open, just to keep in touch with the kids. And they have received $10,000 from the United Way for safe opening, and that helped with dividers, sanitizers, programming supplies, games updated, 4 Chromebooks, and then there's some other programs that are coming forward. Once we get things to open up a wee bit, then they're moving forward with more. They're excited. The kids are excited. We just wish we could have more youth there, but unfortunately, under the situation we're at, we're maxed out with every night with what we have. So that's it from there. And then the next day, we just had a meeting with you and the deputy mayor with regards to CAO people to determine which organization might be suitable to move forward with our selection process. That's it, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Walker. Thank you for the update on the youth center. Glad to see that the program is still moving ahead, and we're having some successes there. I'm really happy to hear that. Councillor Broderick is next, and then Councillor Denis.
Thank you, Your Worship. October the 29th, I sat in on the South Georgian Bay Tourism's AGM via Zoom. November the 10th, I'll be attending the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting, and on the 16th, the Clearview budget meeting with the rest of council, and on the 18th, the Clearview Chamber of Commerce meeting. That's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Broderick. Councillor Deneen is next, and then we'll go to Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Not much to report in Ottawa. Beautiful weather. There's been lots of people out and around. Robert, that was a great report from Courtney and staff. They are doing amazing work there. That is really good. It really is good to hear. I just wanted to, because of a few incidents I've been hearing about out and around, I just wanted to ask people out there just to please remember to be kind to people we encounter day to day. And that's too bad that we have to remind people to do that. And just to continue to be diligent in protecting ourselves and others out there. Just been hearing about a few incidents now and again, and kind of witnessed one the other day. So just a reminder to everybody that we need to look after ourselves and others. And thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Janine. I really appreciate that. That's good advice given out for everybody. Thank you. Councillor Patterson's next, and then Councillor Lamers. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I mentioned the little session, the neighborhood engagement we had with MDM, just to visit with Doug Gray on the site, and in organizing that, I did a little walk around the immediate neighborhood, within the publication zone for the public notice. Received a lot of interesting comments from people. They seem to be doing along the lines of what Councillor Deneen just said, in terms of how people are coping and how they should behave or how they are behaving. Generally, people are in a good frame of mind, and it was kind of good to, didn't quite knock on doors. I sort of rapped on the window and then ran away to keep my social distancing, and had, well, what amounted to a bit of a shouting match, but it was a good-natured one where we just kind of talked, and they did about a 2-hour walk around, and it was good to feel the public pulse in that way. So that's kind of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. All righty. Councillor Lamers is next, and then Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. October 7th, we had a Brentwood Hall Board meeting. Not much happening there yet. October 29th, I tried to join a meeting. I was having trouble getting into it, but I understand that Winterama's canceled this year, and Amanda is going to try to put some sort of activity kit to put together for it. So there is going to be something for Winterama. And then, November 7th, I got to join the mayor at the New Lowell Legion for the Township Laying of the Wreath for Remembrance Day. A beautiful sunny afternoon. November 7th, I will be having another Brentwood Hall Board meeting. We're going to discuss some sort of fundraising possibilities, and I've been contacted by the Girl Guides. They may be interested in renting the hall if we can make it feasible for them. And then on the 12th, I got an evening hall board meeting. And then just answering emails on ATVs and speed, and people are wondering what's happening with the internet in the area. Is there any new systems coming up? Wi-Fi is terrible around here. A lot of people looking for more Wi-Fi. And then I'd like to thank Todd for getting the gravel leveled off around our cement pad. So we're almost ready for winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lamers. And it was a pleasure to join you and the members of the New Lowell Legion to present a wreath on behalf of the Township of Clearview. It was a lovely afternoon. It was a pleasant experience. There was good social distancing, and there was some good fundraising going on too with the Poppy Drive out on the road. So I thought that was great for the Legion. So good for them. It's good to see you there, sir. It's funny, we see each other here in this meeting. We don't see each other in person very often. So it's good to see you again. Okay, Councillor McKechnie is next, and then Councillor Leishman. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a whole lot to report. Speaking to John's comment there regarding Wi-Fi, that's why I'm in the council chambers tonight. The internet is terrible out at my place, so came here to the council chambers. Anyway, didn't do a whole lot over the last couple of weeks, but Councillor Leishman and I, we both attended the dedication of a street cleaner by the Collingwood BIA to former Councillor Ed Christie. And I think you were there too at one point, Your Worship. I heard you were there anyway. Anyway, I was just thinking that after Ed gets done laughing that a vacuum cleaner is named after him, I think that as a founding member of the Collingwood BIA, he would be very proud. So anyway, that was about the only thing that I did this past week. Thank you.
Well said there, Doug. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Leishman, you're up next. And then we'll see the deputy mayor if he has anything further.
Thank you. I don't have much to report, just that I'm hoping people are getting out and enjoying this beautiful weather. Excuse me. We're not going to have much of it much longer, so enjoy it now because winter's coming. Hate to tell you. Other than that, not much. Yes, we went and saw the dedication of the sweeper, and actually they called the sweeper Ed, which was actually quite cute, but who knows? And you're right, Doug, once he stops laughing, I'm sure he'll appreciate that. So I've got library on the 17th, chamber on the 18th, and I'm also attending a mini conference with Terry O'Reilly through the South Georgian Bay Small Business Center on the 18th. So just kind of busy coming up, but haven't been too busy except enjoying this nice weather. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything further you'd like to add tonight?
Yeah, not a lot. I think I covered most of that and everybody else has come, but I just want to accent what Robert Walker, Councillor Walker said about the youth committee and their activity kits that they send out. It's going out to all corners of Clearview, which is great to hear. Excellent news. So that I mentioned, I did attend the NEC meeting, which was in regards to the closing of 91. I was involved in that. That's going to hearing, so there's not much I can tell you about it. And I was at the county accessibility meeting because I sit on that board as well. So, and the committee of adjustment for a couple of weeks ago, and then these weeks and months go by so fast. There's one again next week. So, and then I met with your worship and with Councillor Walker, and we did the review of who we wanted to pick to be our recruiters for our new CAO. I'll keep it short. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for bringing that up again. I just want to mention about the recruiting for the CAO. We have in fact secured the services of Robert Johnson, who assisted us at this township with other searches. His firm gave an application. The committee reviewed them, and we made the call to go with that, and it was approved by our treasurer, who was able to secure or direct us that we were within budget to do that. So that process is moving forward, and advertising will begin soon, I imagine. The other thing that all members of council should be aware that Mr. Johnson may give you a call or arrange for a phone call or a conversation just to hear your input on the role before he starts the full recruitment process. So you may get a request for a conversation in the coming weeks, okay? All right, I've got a couple things I want to mention. I had a meeting with our new inspector from the OPP. He's here as an interim inspector. He's Mr. Ward is his name, and he is taken over from Phil, and he is going to be very, very attentive to speeding. I had a great conversation with him about that. Speeding is already on his mind, and I was let him know that we were receiving that report earlier tonight, and the work's going there. So I wanted you to know that, and the public to know that we're continuing to build our relationship with the local OPP detachment. I also had a meeting with Jarlett Homes, or the long-term care facility that's slated for growth, or slated for building here in Stayner, and working with them, that they advised me they want to get going sometime in the spring of 2021. So council may be seeing a report about that moving ahead soon, which is great news for the community. Just as a quick update, I visited the Stayner Arena one day last week, and I can just tell you that Mr. Vachon and his crew up there, and all the staff that work at the arena complex and the community center, they're very close to having the renovations completed over there. So much so to the point that Amanda Murray has left the building. Amanda no longer reports to work here at the administration center. She has moved into her new office out there at the arena, so very happy for her and the department, and I think that'll help the whole community as well, having the team together where they can, synergy and work together. Want to mention Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day is on Wednesday this week. With this COVID situation, obviously Dominion Command has asked the members of the Legion to not have gatherings at cenotaphs, and the legions that are in our community have acknowledged that. And as a result, Councillor Lambers and I did an early laying of a wreath. We did on Saturday. So on Remembrance Day at the Legion in New Lowell, there will not be a gathering. There will be a small service. I was speaking to the president that they will have a small service. The wreaths are all going to be set out again. And so they're going to do something really short, which is respectable that they have to do during this COVID situation. But I want to acknowledge that. I understand I've not actually had any contact with the Legion in Krumer. I kind of expected I would have heard from them, but I just haven't had the opportunity to connect. But I did read in the paper that they have said that there will not be any ceremony at the Krumer Cenotaph on Remembrance Day, and that's respectable as well. That they're doing a very brief event, and would ask people to recognize Remembrance Day at home, so that's good. That's happening there. Here in Stayner, the local Legion in Stayner, there will be a short ceremony here at the Cenotaph, and they approached me about whether we could assist the Legion with a live streaming of the event, which we agreed to do. And I want to congratulate and thank the IT department here at the Township of Clearview and our communications coordinator, Drew Hale. They have arranged that they will have a camera and a little web stream set up for the events here at the Cenotaph in Stayner for Remembrance Day. So there'll be a very short ceremony. There'll be no laying of wreaths. There's no gathering on the street. But there will be O Canada, and the pipes are going to play and that type of thing. So there will be a moment to remember here. We're asking people to go to the YouTube site, which is the site where this meeting right now is. There will be a link that'll show up on Remembrance morning. So approximately 10:50 in the morning, there'll be a service that you'll be able to see there. And that's what's happening there. And lastly, just to bring the attention to Councillor McKechnie, the Cenotaph up in Singhampton, I have no information about whatever's happening up there, but I did learn something significant for our community. And it just came to me just by chance over the weekend, and I want to share this with you guys because it's kind of significant. The World War I vets don't get a whole lot of attention in the in the world because it's such a long time ago. And yet our cenotaphs have many, many names from World War I. And one of the names that came up this weekend to me was the name Neil Taylor. Turns out that Neil Taylor was born in Singhampton, served with the Army or did his training, and then went to England and joined the Royal Flying Corps. So he was a pilot in World War I. And he was shot down and survived the war, but moved back to where he is now his home is in Saskatchewan. Turns out that Neil Taylor went on to become quite a famous football player, played with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and Taylor Field in Regina is named after him, which is kind of interesting. I never knew that connection, that Taylor Field was named after Neil Taylor, who's from Singhampton. So there you go. There's your little connection story for today. Anyway, I hope everybody would recognize Remembrance Day, and we'll want to obviously recognize the work that the Legions do in our community. So thank you. Council, we're going to move on. We've got more on our agenda. Item 12, Department Reports. Community Services. I think Mara is here. She might want to speak about this. It's about our grants for the Community Improvement Program. Hello, Mara. CS 050-2020. The Community Improvement Plan for 2020 to date proposed grant approvals. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive, report CS 050-2020 for information. And item 2, approves the community improvement grants as per the Director of Community Services, report CS 050 for a 7269 Highway 26. Whew. Okay, a mover and seconder to get this on the floor. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and Ms. Burton, why don't you inform us what this is all about?
Thank you, Worship. Well, I'm happy to bring forward a community improvement grant recommendation for Sutton on the Bay Realty Group. It's been a while since we've seen one come forward, and I'm hoping to see more, particularly as we move into 2021. So hopefully anybody who's out there gets word out that we still have the CIP running. And what they are doing, the application in this case, is to remove the bubble awning signage at the front. I think it may be a backlit bubble on sign, and replace that with a traditional, more heritage awnings over the windows and the door with the sign on it, and some gooseneck lighting to light up that awning. So I think it'll be stunning when it's done, and I'm recommending approval. It is consistent with our architectural guidelines.
Outstanding. Any questions or comments on Mayor's report in this work? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Leishman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you have a couple of items switched on this. I think the gooseneck lighting, 2,949 should be on the other side under the percentage funding, and vice versa.
Okay, let me, thank you for that. Let me just take a look, because it's possible I might have messed that up.
It is 2020. Don't worry about it.
All right, give me just one moment. So let me just go through it. The awnings and the, oh, and they also, pardon me, they also have a projecting sign as well that they're proposing, which is really beautiful. So the awnings, the projecting sign, and the gooseneck lighting all are able to be funded at 80%. So the numbers that you're seeing in the proposed element column are the full amount, and then it's 80% of that. So the awnings are 8344.95, and 80% of that should be 6675.96. I am definitely not a math major, so
no, that's right.
Yeah, the projecting sign is 49.55, and at 80% of that, it is 39.64. And the gooseneck lighting at 29. Oh yeah, you're right. There it is. There's the mistake. All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Leishman, for pointing that out. However, in the end, I don't think it's going to make much difference because they have overhit their mark at the 10,000, but I will make sure that I correct that in the letter to them if council does approve this. So thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Anybody else with any questions or comments or mathematical equations that need to be solved? All right. We'll call John King in on that from CNN. Anyway, nothing further. All right. Thank you very much, Mayor. Glad to see the program's continuing, and glad to see residents and business owners wanting to continue to invest in their community and invest in their buildings. Let's see, Council, we've got a mover and seconder on the floor. How about we call the motion? All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving right along, hey, Scott's here, Scott McLeod. We've got building permits and, building department activities report. There it is. Nice to see you, sir. I'll get it on the floor and then we'll have your report. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview, hereby one, receive this report for information. It is CS 051-2020. Okay, a mover and seconder. Let's go. Councillor Lamers, Councillor Walker. Hey there, Mr. McLeod, why don't you update us?
Thank you, Your Worship, to all council. I just want to obviously have the report before you. I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions. I did want to highlight just a couple items in the report. We have filled our plans review position, and Miranda Murray started with us on October the 5th and has been a great addition to our team. And we look forward to working with her. And additionally, we continue to work on updating our software. it feels like I keep saying this, but it will be a long process. You'll continue to hear about the software moving on into next spring. But all three departments, well, actually it's four departments, the building department, the planning department, bylaw, and then there is a component where the public works through the site plan approval process is involved with the CityView software. So we are moving towards implementation. We're sort of at the stage where they're testing our server and setting up sort of a test environment. At some point in the new year, we will have sort of a test software that we'll start working with, and then have it customized to suit Clearview's needs. But it will be a very long and detailed process, but certainly a worthwhile one, and it'll give us give the public an opportunity to have online services through a public portal on our website, and so we're very excited to be moving forward with that project. Beyond that, I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions that council may have regarding the report. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you. Councillors, any member of council have any questions to Scott? I think they're very satisfied with the report, Scott. Good job.
Great.
And thank you. And I'm glad to see Miranda's doing a great job adapting to the fact that we have two Murrays around the building. So she's done well. I mean, we've got Amanda Murray now moved out of the building, so Miranda can have the building to herself. Good for her.
There you go.
Members of council, you've got the motion in front of you. Prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And we'll call that motion carried. Thank you, Scott. Have a good evening, sir. Okay, council, CS 053-2020, which is a pre-servicing agreement for Ashton Meadows Phase 1A. Nick is there. Hello, Nick. I know this is something that you've been working on for a while. So I'm going to read this. I'll look for a mover and seconder. It's a little lengthier than longer than your usual motion. So recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby, 1, receive report CS 053-2020 for information regarding a pre-servicing agreement for Ashton Meadows Phase 1A subdivision, file number 2012-018SD. And item 2, approve that bylaw 20-74, authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the pre-servicing agreement to allow for a portion of the works to be constructed prior to final approval of the Phase 1A of plan of subdivision on a portion of the lands described as Part Lot 23, Concession 2, Nottawasaga, being parts 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, Plan 51R 35-868 in Clearview. Mover and seconder on this motion, please. Councillor Broderick, Councillor Walker. Councillor Broderick, Councillor Walker. Nick and Mara. Oh, hello, Mara again. Anything you want to add to finally getting this report in front of us, Nick?
Nothing really to add. I'm happy that it's here, but I'm here to answer any questions if any council members have anything to inquire about.
Okay, excellent. Any members of council have any questions on the report? Wow, awesome. We're doing great here tonight. Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, Mara. Members of council, you've got a motion with a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. We're moving on to page number 4, which is finance. So we've got an item here from finance regarding the library. I think we talked about this at our last council meeting, so I'm glad to see this has now come up here. Hello, Kelly, our treasurer. FIM 014-2020. It's the OILC loan for the Clearview Library, and its recommendation be it resolved. The Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive the OILC loan application, Clearview Library Stainer Branch report for information, and item 2, pass a bylaw to authorize the OIC loan application for the Clearview Public Library Stainer Branch. Can I have a mover and seconder on the Stainer Branch motion? Looking at Councillor Leachman. Although Councillor Leachman and Councillor Broderick, why thank you. I see you smiling, Councillor Leachman. Kelly, would you like to review some of the content of this report and be prepared to answer any questions? Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm absolutely prepared to answer any questions. This is just step 1 of the OILC loan process. This is council giving me approval to go ahead with the loan application.
To go ahead with the loan application. Any questions, members of council? Yes, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you very much. I'm a little bit confused. This sort of took me by surprise. I thought we had the money sitting there. I didn't realize that we were going to be taking out a loan, amortizing it over 30 years to pay for the library. I thought we already had the money for the library. We're looking at an extra $1.3 million now for the library. When we pay it over 30 years, it's going to be come out to, that loan will be 4.9 million that we're paying. And so anyway, was this always the plan that we would take out a loan and amortize it over 30 years? Was this always the plan? Was I mistaken in that, in thinking that we had the money set aside for this library?
Through your worship to Councillor McKechnie, this was the amount in the original business plan presented, I believe, 2016. The loan application will be for the 3.25, as I say, as set out in the original business plan.
Okay, I must have been mistaken then, because I remember at the last budget meetings there last year, I asked that question, whether we had the money and whether we would be looking at having to come up with more money for the library. And I was told that yes, we had the money. So I guess I must have misunderstood and thought that the money was actually sitting in an account somewhere. So, okay, thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to try to help you out with that in a minute here, Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I thought maybe I would just add this to Councillor McKechnie. So it was always the plan to borrow the money, but the money we put into reserves every year is paying the loan payments.
Okay.
So it's not affecting the levy at all. It's what it is. It's the money we put enough money into reserves to put so much money towards the build, and then the remaining money that we put into the reserve every year is to carry the loan payments. And I believe it's actually working out less. I remember working out slightly less than what we were putting into the reserves.
Okay. So,
thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, go ahead.
So one more question then. So out of every, so basically the library is costing us, I think in 2018 it cost us what did I write down here? 3.6%. 2019 it was around 3.4% of every dollar that we spend, and last year was 4.1%. So will this add on to that? So last year we were 4.1% for the cost of for every dollar that's spent in Clearview. Will this now add more onto that this coming for the next 30 years?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Before Kelly tries to answer this, and I know she could do it much better than me, believe me, I'm somebody who's never been the great advocate of this entire process, but let me share what I know. Okay. That is that we established a fund 4 terms of council ago, I believe, that started at $25,000 coming from the tax levy that would go into our reserve account. And then it increased to 50,000, then it increased to 75, and then it increased to 100. And now we have been collecting $175,000 to go into our reserve fund that's specifically set aside for the actual build project for the Stainer branch. And so, as the deputy mayor points out, it's already in the levy that we're collecting $175,000 that's going into this reserve account. So part of that reserve that's been building for, Kelly, it's got to be 7 years at least we've been building that, I think. Part of that amount is going in to pay for the works so far, and the rest of it is being borrowed in a long-term debenture with very low rates, which is what Kelly is going to be applying for right here to actually establish that rate. So the report comes out that we're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $136,000 paying down the loan. Kelly, is that about approximately where we were?
Absolutely, Your Worship. We are currently budgeting the loan and interest payments at the 175,000. We expect it to come in lower than that. Until I can submit the loan application to the province, I won't have the exact rate sheet, but we do expect to come in below that 175. So there won't be any increase on the library for the loan. It'll be within that 175.
Does that help, Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, it's, I'm not an accountant, so, you know, I was just trying to wrap my head around some of these numbers. And so obviously I was mistaken then during the last budget meeting last year. And so, okay, no, that's fair enough. I mean, we have the library, we got to pay for it. So anyway, it was just a little bit of a shock when I saw this report, that was all. So
I completely understand how you feel. I really, really do. Okay. But it's now set out as a really good plan on how we're going to pay this thing down. And it's not so different than a lot of other infrastructure and capital investments that the township makes. We have a fire hall that we're paying off, you know, in a similar manner. So
yeah, no, that's fair enough.
I see the clerk has joined us for something. Madam Clerk, hello.
I was just going to add to the conversation, Your Worship, perhaps because Councillor McKechnie wasn't on council when this was first approved, there was a substantial business plan that was done. So perhaps we can provide him with a copy of that business plan, and it might help to understand some more of the finance side of it.
Sure. If it's not too detailed, yeah, send it my way, sure.
We get enough reading already, don't we? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kelly. Is there any other questions? Okay, Council, you've got a mover and seconder, and I will call the motion then. All those in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much, Councillor Leishman. There you go. All right. Okay, where are we here? Legislative clerks. Yes, our clerk needs to come back on board. We've got a couple things here to talk about. So LS 015-2020, application for a tile drain loan. Recommendation be it resolved. Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive LS 015-2020, an application for a tile drain loan for information, and approve. Item 2, approve the application to Lydia Norgraf for a tile drain loan on concession 10, lot 11, former township of Sunnydale, in accordance with the Ministry of Agriculture, Agricultural Food, Rural Affairs policy for tile drainage for the current year, subject to the availability of provincial funds. Okay, tile drain loans. Can I get a mover and seconder on the motion, please? Where are we? Broderick and Leishman. Broderick and Leishman. And Madam Clerk, have you got any comment on the tile drain loan?
No, this is a standard application that comes through the clerk's office, and either myself or Brenda would be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Excellent. Any questions from members of council? All right, seeing none, I'll just call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, here is a item that I know you want to talk about. LS 016-2020, the 2022 Municipal and School Board election. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, direct staff to bring back a bylaw to the December 14, 2020 council meeting to permit internet telephone voting and paper ballots with tabulators as the voting method for the 2022 municipal and school board election. And item 2, single source Dominion voting as the election voting method provider for the next election cycle in 2022. All right, is there a mover and seconder on the motion? Mover, Councillor Lamers, seconded by Councillor Walker. Lamers and Walker. Madam Clerk, would you please outline this report for us and make sure that the Electoral College gets all of our votes, okay?
Well, I think we'll get the results a little bit earlier than the US did. But
we did very well.
Even with going back to paper ballots. So thank you, Your Worship and members of council. So municipal and school board elections happen every 4 years, but those of you that have been around for quite a while know that the clerks kind of never stop working on elections. Once we finish one, we're revving up for the next one. And there's a lot of work that has to be done in between the elections. That's why we have to bring these reports to you so soon in the term. We are recommending a change for the next municipal election, and there's a couple of reasons for it. The first thing I'll say is that we have run very successful internet and telephone elections here for the last 2 terms. And at one point, we were the leaders in Simcoe County for internet and telephone voting. And we don't want to shy away from that. We want to keep going forward with that. But what we have found over the last 2 elections is that there's still a percentage of people that would prefer going to the polls and actually filling out the paper ballot. And at the end of the day, what we want to achieve is high voter turnout. So if we can provide as many different forms of voting as possible to get the electorate out to vote, that's what we want to do. We're recommending the single source with Dominion Voting because they offer a one-stop shop. So the first thing is that they work hand in hand with our voters list software people, DataFix. And the system works flawlessly with the internet and telephone system solution, but also with the paper ballots and the tabulators. And we need to make sure we're working with the same vendors because we need to ensure that we're keeping an accurate list of who's voting and how ballots are counted. So that's really important when we look at offering 2 different methods that are going to be working simultaneously together throughout the election process. Now, some of you will remember that Dominion had a little bit of a hiccup in the last election that we didn't experience in Clearview. And I've attached a letter to the report that outlines what happened. So the way I can explain it is you have a 4-lane highway and you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden it slows down to 1 lane. The traffic starts to slow down as well too. And that's exactly what happened during the 2018 municipal and school board election. Their subcontractor had turned down the bandwidth of the server's capacity when people were casting their ballots. And they did this on election day. So that caused huge problems. Now they have worked to resolve this, and I feel confident that their solution that they have facilitated will meet the needs of our election in the future. IntelliVote Systems, who we've used for the last 2 elections, the election prior to our first one with them, they had a similar issue as well too. So I think the best thing to note is that it's about how the company handles it and how they move forward to solve the solution. And from the clerks that I have spoken to, Dominion Voting, when that happened, handled it very professionally, both during the event and after the event, and have since worked to correct the solution to a way that meets the needs of our future elections. The other thing to note is that the paper and tabulator system that we would be using, that we're recommending for use with council, is the same one that will be used for Elections Ontario. So people that are going to the polls to cast ballots in the election at the provincial level, which usually happens about 4 or 5 months before ours, will be using the exact same tabulators. And Elections Ontario has kind of worked out a little bit of a deal for us, and we're not sure the exact discount we're going to receive, but what they said is that any municipality that signs up with Dominion Voting and uses our tabulators gets an automatic discount. So our voters will be using the exact same tabulators that they're using with Elections Ontario as well too, which also helps to assist us when we're training poll workers, etc., because poll workers tend to work the different elections. So that will be helpful as well. We are asking for a small increase in the budget. We've split it over 2 years, so we're asking for just over $12,000, and that is for us to be able to provide the paper and tabulator system as well. And Your Worship, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think that was a little bit of a long overview, but this is certainly an important topic for everyone. Thank you.
For sure it is. Members of council, have you got any questions for our clerk in regards to this report? I'm not seeing any questions, Madam Clerk.
That's great.
That's great. I think that it's important to note that the voters list remains still a little bit of a sore spot in the fact that we did meet with the ministry and they gave commitment that they would take over the voters list. But Madam Clerk, can you advise the status where we are for this year when it comes to, or for this coming election, where the voters list remains?
Sorry, thank you, Your Worship. So certainly this council has been very supportive of, encouraging the province to adapt changes to the voters list. In particular, what we want to see is Elections Ontario take over the voters list. So what a lot of people in Ontario don't realize is that there's actually 3 different voters lists. There's one for the federal, one for the province, and one for municipal, and they're all managed by different people. So a lot of times we get questions at the counter, well, I just voted in the provincial election, why don't you have my information? And unfortunately, because that list isn't the same list that we're working off of, we don't necessarily have that information. So it's really frustrating to a lot of voters in Ontario. And certainly we've seen those frustrations expressed in Clearview Township. So what I can report is that Elections Ontario will be taking over the list. It will not be for 2022. So they will be working on having the municipal list for the election after that. I think it's just too soon for them to implement it because there is a lot of complexities to the voters list and how they achieve that information. But I think once Elections Ontario does take over the list, we will see a substantial difference. So we do have one more election to get through before Elections Ontario takes it over, and we will do our best to mitigate any issues with it. But I do think that the election after 2022, so I guess that'd be 2026, we will see a substantial improvement.
All right, well, that helps answer my question to the voters list, so looking forward to it. Members of council, is there anything further? All right. Thank you, Ms. Clerk. You and your staff continue to do amazing work when it comes to things like this type of project, so keep up the good work. Members of council, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Before we go to the next motion, I know it's 10 minutes too. We've probably got lots of items to discuss. Can we go to Councillor McKechnie's favorite motion? Madam Clerk, since you're here, can you bring me the motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock?
It's 9:30. If we're out of here by 9:30, we're good, aren't we?
Is it 9:30 or 9?
I was just going to say, I think it's 9:30. So,
okay.
Yeah, we might be able to achieve it. So
Right, well,
going on.
We can do it. We can do it.
I'm watching you there, Doug. I'm watching you. Okay. All right, council. LS017 is the Clearview Stainer Food Bank. Recommendation, be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive the LS017 2020 Clearview Stainer Food Bank report for information. And item 2, approve the financial assistance to the Clearview Stainer Food Bank in the amount of $10,000 to be funded from the Clearview COVID Community Assistance Fund and the 2020 Clearview Community Assistance Fund. Those are 2 different funds, so I want to make sure that we understand that. Members of council, can I ask for a mover and seconder on that? Councillor Deneen and Councillor Leishman. The deputy clerk is here. She worked on this report, and if there's any questions of the report or any information, the deputy clerk is available to us as well. Hello, Brenda. Nice to have you here.
Hello.
Hello. Members of council, any questions on this report? All right. Good job, folks. Thank you for that. Brenda, nice to see you. Council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimously, and Madam Clerk's got her hand up. Go ahead.
Your Worship, I just wanted to remind you about the toy drive, if you just wanted to make that announcement.
Well, why don't you do that since you want to talk about it? The toy drive is happening again, and so that'll be a real positive thing for our community right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank the Deputy Clerk. She has sent around an email to our municipal staff and to our council. Certainly members of the community can also participate. We will be collecting toys to give out at Christmas time. So certainly if anybody would like to participate, just give Brenda a call and we can arrange a drop off, etc. So
Looking forward to that. Boy, Christmas is just around the corner. Amazing. All right, Council. I've moved on to page 5 of our agenda. At the top of the page, it says bylaws. So I got a whole bunch of bylaws to go through here. We'll start with bylaw number 20-72. It's the OILC loan recommendation. Be it resolved that bylaw number 20-72, being a bylaw to approve the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, OILC, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 9th day of November 2020. I have a mover and seconder on the bylaw. That'd be Deneen and Broderick. Deneen and Broderick. And Council, you've heard the bylaw. We've had the discussion earlier. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Item number 20-74 is a bylaw to enter into a pre-servicing agreement with 863195 Ontario Limited. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 20-74, being a bylaw to enter into a pre-servicing agreement to be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this 9th day of November 2020. Council, can I have a mover and seconder on that bylaw? That'd be Lamers and Broderick on this one. Lamers and Broderick. Members of Council, you've heard the bylaw. All those in favor? That motion carries. 2074. 2075 is to enter into a development charge early payment and top-up contribution agreement with 863195 Ontario Limited. It's actually an on-desk report, and we have that here in front of us as bylaw number 20-75. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 20-75, being a bylaw to enter into a development charge early payment and top-up contribution agreement with 863195 Ontario Limited, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this 9th day of November. Mr. Ron is with us. Can I have a mover and seconder? Okay, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Lamers. You've heard the bylaw. Any questions on the bylaw? Yes, go ahead, Doug. McKechnie?
Yeah, this was something that was dealt with in camera today, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I wasn't at that meeting, maybe I should not vote on this at all. So I think I'll just withdraw from voting.
Fair enough. Councillor, that's fair. Madam Clerk, just acknowledge that Councillor McKechnie has withdrawn at this point. Is there any further questions? I see Mike is with us. If there's anything you'd like to know. All right. Members of Council, I'll call the motion for the bylaw. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, Council, additional on-desk items are bylaw number 2076. These were definitely talked about in camera. This is what we did mention it earlier. It has to do with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. So the recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 2076, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, the NVCA, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this 9th day of November 2020. Can I have a mover and seconder on this bylaw? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Broderick. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Broderick. Councillor McKechnie, do you want to continue to withdraw? These are items from in camera. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay. No problem. I appreciate that, and thank you for bringing it up. Council, you've heard the bylaw. We've had the discussion about the NVCA agreement. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. That bylaw carries. Okay, and the last bylaw that came out of our in-camera discussion is the bylaw to appoint. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw number 20-77, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 19-06, the appointment bylaw, adding Ian McGregor to the Duntroon Hall Board, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 9th day of November 2020. Mover and seconder on this bylaw. I see Broderick and Walker. Broderick and Walker. And we want to welcome Mr. McGregor. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion, the bylaw is carried. And again, welcome Mr. McGregor for volunteering on the Duntroon Hall Board. All right, Council, we're at item number 13, and it is 9 o'clock. And I'm going to read item 13.1, but Mr. McKechnie has already said that he wants to remove the notice of motion. So 13.1 was the notice of motion regarding opening of washrooms at the station on the green. Councillor McKechnie has asked to remove it, just acknowledging that that's correct.
Yep, that's right. That's correct. It's dealt with. Yep. That's
been dealt with, and I want to thank our staff and the volunteers at the BIA for working together with the volunteers at the station on the green to resolve this problem. And thank you very much for that, for bringing it up. 13.2, Councillor Lamers is the bylaw. Councillor Lamers, I can read the bylaw. I assume you're going to be the mover on it, and then I'll look for a seconder. Notice, or motion, I'm sorry, not bylaw. Notice of motion, Councillor Lamers. Recommendation, whereas the intersection of Hogback Road and Sunnydale Concession 2 has been a site of numerous automobile accidents over the past years. And whereas some of the accidents have resulted in serious injuries and some in fatalities. And whereas both roads are 80 kilometers per hour speed zones with a two-way stop on the Sunnydale Concession 2. Now I put it down, where did I put it? There it is. And whereas the roads of this intersection do not cross at the right angles, therefore sight lines are impaired for safe passage. And now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to install always stop signs with red LED solar powered flashing lights, and that the cost to do so come from the Road Improvement Reserve. I'm going to go to Councillor Lamer. She's going to move that. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Very good. Council, let's have a discussion on this. I see Mike is there. Perhaps Dan is there too. Is Dan on board? There he is. Hello, Dan. First of all, can we just affirm that through our public works staff that we have funds in our road improvement reserve to actually handle this right off the top? Mike or Dan, can you just affirm that?
Your worship, there's a couple things we're not clear about. That particular reserve, I'd have to defer to the treasurer, but when I talked to Kelly earlier about this, I don't think that particular reserve exists. Okay. And Dan has looked at some of the statistics presented, and well, I'll let council discuss. I would like to speak just before council votes, if that's okay. And if Dan has anything to add, feel free.
Yeah, to be honest, the reason I went to you first on this one before I even gave Councillor Lambers a chance to speak was because I'm not sure if that's exactly the wording for reserve funding. So perhaps between now and when we get to it, Kelly can come up with the exact title of whatever that reserve is called. So thank you for that, Mike and Dan. Councillor Lambers, would you like to speak to your motion first?
It pretty well speaks for itself. Anybody that's been down that road knows that there's been a problem there. The sight lines are terrible, the angles are terrible, and there's 80-kilometer-an-hour roads. And I hate going through that intersection along with a lot of other people. It's just a bad intersection the way it's laid out.
Fair enough. All right, well, thank you for that. And I'm sure Councillor Lambers, if you want to hang around for other comments, we'll go to you. I see the Deputy Mayor's got a card. I think I saw Councillor Patterson had a card a moment ago. Is that correct? I'm looking for anybody else. Okay, the Deputy Mayor is up first. I see Deneen. Okay, Deputy Mayor Patterson, then Deneen. Go ahead, Barry.
Sorry, actually, Councillor Patterson had his card up first, but if it's okay with him, I'll speak since I'm speaking. He said yes, he nodded. Yes, I support this motion 100%. I've been through this intersection many times. recognize that how dangerous it is. And it's just, and we have had fatalities there. We've had serious injuries there. It's time to do something about this intersection. And and the local residents are asking us to do something about it. So I know that's, it's always a question, are stop signs the right thing to do? But in this case, I think it's the right thing to do.
Great, thank you. Councillor Patterson is next, then Deneen.
Yeah, I just say in the form of a friendly amendment, but first a discussion from Mike and Dan, because we did talk about this before. It definitely has to be improved. And I drive it, I'm there 2 or 3 times a week, it seems. And it's definitely, and I see these people actually, they almost pull a U-turn. The standard curl now to see if oncoming traffic is you drive into the direction that you're looking, and then you straighten the car out as you go through the intersection. Would a street light be a useful addition to this, or would a street light be enough as opposed to the two-way stops, all-way stops?
Okay, question to the staff. Dan, have you got a comment?
Thank you, Worship. To Councillor Patterson. It is definitely on staff's radar for 2021. You'll see in a few weeks here that staff is going to propose some funding to provide street lights at rural intersections. Not only this one, but in multiple locations. So that will be coming for 2021.
Okay. Good, thank you.
All right, so you wouldn't be able to answer or give any comment about whether it's one or the other, or better or worse, or I mean, I think Councillor Patterson was looking for whether we should keep the red lights and go with just street lights, or what are you thinking, Dan?
Well, I think doing as much as possible to improve the safety. The only example that we have so far in the municipality is at County Road 91, County Road 91 and Concession 10, where we made some improvements this spring, and have been made aware that even the flashing lights on top of the stop signs don't work. People are just, whether it's bad driving, whether it's inconsiderate driving, who knows, but they seem to be daytime collisions up on County Road 91. I've collected data. When the notice of motion was first brought up, I contacted the OPP and asked for 5-year collision data at that intersection, and there have been 6 occurrences at that intersection in the last 5 years. Improving the safety sight lines may be a consideration as well, along with a street light. And there's already oversized stop signs at the intersection, I note. Flashing red lights on top of can be an improvement as well.
Very good. Okay, that helps answer your question, Councillor Patterson. Barry, you want to speak again? I see that you're being kind of persistent. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Dan, so when you say a street light, you're not talking red, green, yellow street light. You're just talking about illuminating the intersection. Is that correct?
Yeah. So a signal light to me would be the red, yellow, green. A street light is just an overhead LED street light.
So while I think a street light would be good at night, I think you still need the 4-way stop with the flashing lights, because the street light's not going to help during the day. So I'm still going to support this motion to go with the 4-way stop and go with the 4-way stop in flashing red lights on the post, and then I would certainly support the street lights being added in the evening.
Thank you, Councillor Deneen. You're still on my list. Go ahead, Councillor Deneen.
Yourself, Mayor, to Councillor Lamers. At election time, John, we were at the Krumer or the New Lowell Legion for a meeting, with the public. And there was a family there with a son who had been in a bad accident. And I'm thinking this is the same persons, the same intersection. Yeah, again, it makes me sad that it's taken this long to get something there. A four-way stop would at least give everybody a 50% chance of going home safely. It won't stop everybody, but at least people will take note of it. And 50% is a whole lot better than the alternative. I really would support this. It's too bad it's taken that long. Yeah, I definitely, my husband and I went for a drive to New Lowell today to check out the building and the buildings there with the fire hall. And I brought him down Hogback Road. His comment was, this is a real drag strip, isn't it? So yeah, something has to be done to slow the people down on that road, and a four-way stop would be a wonderful thing to have. Thanks for bringing it forward, John.
Good comments, Councillor Janine. Good comments, really good comments. Mike, I saw you flash your hand. Did you have something you want to add?
Mayor, Worship. You know, we had a traffic expert here earlier today, Henry Stanton. Dan Pro's obviously well-versed and a traffic expert of his own right. You know, the studies show that improper placement of four-way stops will actually increase accidents. The goal is safety. I think, you know, staff would appreciate being able to provide a report and ask that council consider deferring the motion pending a staff report, because we are also concerned about safety and we do have some expertise in-house. You know, another month maybe of a report and see what Dan could come up with. You know, there's sightline issues for sure. I have close family that, you know, our legs are full of pins from that intersection, but an extra stop sign, it's, the professionals just say that's not the right thing to do. And I want to be able to sleep at night. So I'm at least throwing this out there so that I can achieve that. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I've got comments on that, but I'll ask, does anybody else? You know, I have a great deal of respect for staff when they come forward with their recommendations based on the fact that they're professionals in their field, and I always defer to their wisdom, and I do appreciate exactly what you're saying, Mike. But I also want to reflect upon the fact that what Councillor Deneen said, who respectfully is one of the newest members of this council, who sees that this has not been something that's been handled for many, many years, and perhaps could have been or should have been a long time ago. So I think I respect exactly what you're saying, Mike, but I do think that it's time that this council and this community and this township step up and do something about that intersection. And I don't know if it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do at this point. Again, I'm no traffic expert either, but I commend Councillor Lamers for bringing it forward, and I also commend this council for listening and hearing about it. If I may, council, I got some other questions and comments that I like to throw in about the intersection. And that would be the sight lines to me are the critical issue there. The bush, the county forest that's at the northwest corner, I guess it is. We need to talk, Deputy Mayor, to our forestry guys at the county and see if we can work this out with our staff to get this pushed back. Like that county forest needs to be pushed back there. It's a big sand dune pile right there. It's kind of a sandy intersection right there on that particular side, and I think that forest needs to be pushed back so people can see it. I'm not so sure how we could handle the southeast corner, similar kind of situation, although it's not in the hands of any public agency, that property. So we would need to work with the property owner to create better sight lines, and I think that's the type of thing that professionals like Dan and Mike and Mr. Senton would be able to come up with a report that we could talk to that property owner about, maybe pushing those trees back as well. And then the ultimate challenge there would be to realign the intersection. You know, it's interesting, across Clearview Township, we have a few intersections that come in at a greater than or less than 90-degree angles. The one that's most famous, in my opinion, is the one at County Road 10 and the 12th concession here, just northeast of Stayner. Many accidents have happened there. A county road and a municipal road. Our fire departments have responded to many accidents there, and the county finally did do a renovation on that intersection and led the way. Strangely enough, after the intersection was all renovated, about a year later, a grandmother from Wasaga Beach, she died as a result of injuries on that intersection, even after the intersection was fully renovated. And so there's just some bad drivers out there. So I think we need to do something about this hogback. So I'm very much supportive of it. I would actually ask our staff, once we follow up with this motion and take the direction of council, to look at the traffic calming measures that we have already looked at and discussed. I'm very interested in the idea of paint, some white bars on asphalt. I brought it up at our budget discussion. Councillor Patterson, you weren't there to hear the details of that, but the whole idea is that we need to look at having paint to create the stop bars where stop signs are, and the yellow bar to delineate the center of the lane. I think those should be in anywhere we have pavement. We should look at doing that. So that's one of the activities that the Public Works Department can do. Certainly, it's going to be part of our budget discussion. So I think Councillor Lamers, you brought it forward. I'm glad it's here. Council's hearing you. I think there's more to hear, though. I think that our staff are going to bring more information yet to move this process forward and to bring safety to that intersection as well as other intersections across our township. Now, Councillor Broderick, I recognize your card, but I'm going to go to Dan first because he put up his hand. So go to Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can defer to Councillor Broderick. I was just going to, if council were to pass this resolution tonight, that we can clarify that council is opening funds from a certain account, and maybe Kelly can confirm that.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping early in the discussion here. We could find that information. Kelly, since you joined us, you want to jump in? What do you got to say?
I was just going to mention, through your worship, to Councillor Lamers, if we could strike out the costs come from the road improvement reserve. If this is council's appetite, staff will find the funding for it, but that reserve does not exist.
Councillor Lamers, a friendly amendment. You comfortable with that? Okay. And the seconder, I've just forgotten who the seconder was. Deputy Mayor, good. All right, thank you. Thank you, Kelly, for that input. Councillor Broderick, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the sight lines, if we're going to be doing some work on that eventually, I'm wondering if we would not be better served, if everyone would not be better served if we were to actually turn that intersection into a roundabout.
Wow. That's some vision right there, brother. Good job. I know, I'm not kidding. It is. It is. The challenge,
yeah, it's an ideal solution.
Yeah, for sure.
Just any thoughts on that, Dan?
Dan?
That through your worship, that certainly is thinking outside the box, and I think it may be an opportunity at this intersection, just because we do have a governmental party that owns property on the northwest corner. It may take some negotiation with the county, but not, and it may not need to be a traffic circle, a roundabout. However, there are instances where traffic circles, so they're a smaller, scaled down version of a roundabout that can be implemented and designed, and they don't take up quite as much room. There already is quite a bit of room at that intersection, so that it is something that that could be considered. It would obviously take a little bit longer. Perhaps the four-way stop could be an interim measure while staff look at that. Again, it goes back to Mike's comment on, you know, having staff come back with a report with different solutions that may be better suited for that intersection.
Thank you, Dan, for that sage advice. Councillor Broderick, you comfortable?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Anybody else with any other questions or comments on this? I think this is a really good example, and you heard my comments earlier, so I won't repeat, but I'm very happy to see this come forward. I look forward to us passing this resolution. Council, I'll thank the staff, and we'll have an as amended motion, which strikes out the indication of a road improvement reserve. And so now we're prepared to call the motion. Members of council, are you prepared? All those in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you very much, council. Thank you, Councillor Lamers. All right, council, we are we can wait for 10 minutes to read out Councillor McKechnie's motion, or we could just go to proceed to the confirmatory bylaw. What do you say?
Let's wait 10 minutes.
Okay, sure.
Thank you for all the support on that intersection.
Oh, you're welcome, John.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting. Recommendation be it resolved. Bylaw number 20-73, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 9th, 2020 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on this 9th day of November 2020. Can I have a mover and seconder on the bylaw? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Deneen. Council, you've heard the bylaw. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. All right, council, motion to adjourn. Just before we go, I want to remind people that we do have this Remembrance Day feed, their program that's happening 10:50. I think there's a notice on our council website about that. And so that's available for the public to view. And then following that, we do have our budget discussions, which will be coming up. We're basically going to get together every Monday for the next little while, council, every Monday. So afternoons and then evenings, and then afternoons and evenings. So I look forward to that, and I look forward to hearing your input, and we'll have a good discussion. So council, this has been a good meeting. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn. Recommendation be resolved. The council meeting be adjourned at 9:22 p.m. Can I have a mover and seconder? Deneen and Broderick, and I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for our staff for participating, and I appreciate everybody's input. Goodbye, Barry, and have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.